Chapter 4503. Is this so? Wu Jian's brows frowned some regrets. He is not a reckless person, since Daoyin Supreme said so. It is naturally in this virtual universe that at least one level of power exists with Dao Yen, staring at the land of God. If you forcefully pull the palace master out, not only will the palace master be harmed, but you will not be able to go out alive. Well, sword is unparalleled. You don't have to force it. You come here. I have something to give you. Pu Daoyin Supreme smiled slightly at the corner of his mouth and waved his hand toward the sword unparalleled. Yes. Wu Jian Wushuang nodded and then walked towards Daoyin Supreme. Come, Jian Wushuang, come sit down in front of me. This seat will give you a good fortune. After Jian Wushuang sat down cross-legged in front of Daoyin Supreme extended his finger and gently clicked on Jian Wushuang's brows. Boom! Suddenly, a huge amount of knowledge was poured into Jian Wushuang's mind along Daoyin's supreme fingertips. The huge amount of knowledge almost explodes the sword unparalleled mind. The vision of Wu Jian's eyes changed suddenly. Boom dash! Instantly, Jian Wushuang seemed to travel through the floods of the heavens and the earth, endless time and space, and returned to the beginning of the universe. I saw a chaos between the heavens and the earth, a hazy haze. I don't know how long after that. Suddenly the clear air rose, the turbid gas subsided, and the chaos began to separate. From there was a sky and the earth. Everything began to multiply and be born, and the original face of the universe began. In the universe there are gradually signs of life. A common green lotus, located in the chaos, took the first breath of Hongmeng, and began to evolve from then on. Wu Jian Wushuang knows that this green lotus is naturally Tao Yin Supreme. As time passed, Jian Wushuang was immersed in the evolution of this green lotus. Martyrdom Yin rises from the end of the micro, and then dominates the universe. All the avenues of understanding and magic skills are engraved in Jian Wushuang's mind. The pictures in Wu Jian's eyes did not end until Dao Yin Supreme reached the top of the universe. After the cricket was over, Jian Wushuang said nothing, closed his eyes immediately, and began to digest the mood and feelings in it. This is Dao Yin Supreme's understanding of Tiandi Avenue. At this moment, I gave Jian Wushuang everything this fortune. It was scary. And Jian Wushuang also knows that at this moment is not the time to say the words of gratitude. What he has to do now is to do his best to absorb this insight carefully. He and Daoyin Supreme are both super perfect lives. It can be said that by absorbing this Daoyin Supreme's understanding of the heavens and the avenue, and the realization of the major realms, Jian Wushuang's future will be smooth. As long as he follows going the route, future achievements can reach the point where Dao Yin is supreme. After a few hours, Wu Jianshou slowly opened his eyes and exhaled a long breath. His consciousness on Heaven and Earth Avenue has been digested by him. During the pause time, Jian Wushuang had many things he didn't understand on the road, and combined with Tao Yin Supreme's perception of Tiandi Avenue, he couldn't help but open up, just like a gigantic initiation. Stones from other hills can learn. Wu Jian Wushuang is not ready to follow the Taoist Supreme Enlightenment and follow the same path as the Taoist Supreme. However, Dao Yin's Supreme Enlightenment from heaven can directly increase his knowledge of the enlightenment on the avenue, broaden his horizons, and make up for shortcomings. Thank you, brother. Wu Jianshou took a deep breath and bowed his head to worship. Oh, no need, Yu Gong. You are my disciple. You are my master. This one should take care of you for 1 or 2. If you are really interested, you should practice well. If any day, you can lead the shrine disciple. It is our greatest consolation to break into this virtual universe and rescue this seat. Su Daoyin shook his head with a smile and raised his hand, and a soft power blocked the forehead of Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang looked at Dao Yin with a somber expression, and then gave a long stern earnestly, and said in a deep voice, Brother Dao Yin, rest assured, my Jian Wushuang swears here. In this life, as long as my sword Wujuo's life does not return to heaven, he do everything in your power to lead a disciple of the palace to break the virtual universe and rescue you, brother. It is good. Shi Daoyin smiled a little, her face was kind and soft. Immediately, he doubled his right hand again, and a black iron token appeared in his hand. The sword is unparalleled, And now the Dragon Palace of Life has no heads. This seat is now ordered to seal you as the second-generation Palace Lord of Life Palace. This token card represents the identity of the sovereign. If you hold this token, you will be the second generation of my life shrine. After saying this, Dao Yin Supreme pushed with his right hand and handed this black iron token to Jian Wushuang. Wu Ji and Wusu took a deep look at Dao Yin Supreme and immediately solemnly collected the token. Seeing this, Dao Yin nodded with satisfaction and said, Jian Wushuang, now that you are the suzerain, you should act as suzerain. You must not be desolate and innocent. Do you think? Disciple, understand. The sword is unparalleled. Brother Dao Yin. And also, the Taoist is now lurking in the refining deities. So that if the disciples see you, help him to give you a sentence. He is fine, no need to worry. This kid has a good life. I didn't expect the weakest of us at the time, but fled to birth. Dao Yin was supreme for a moment, then smiled broadly at the corner of his mouth and shook his head. It's worth mentioning, the kid who moved the mountain is still alive, but it's a piece of my mind. Afterwards, the two confessed a few more words, and there was a tinge of tiredness in Dao Yan's supremely cloudy eyes. Sword unparalleled. Then finally, Dao Yan took a deep look at Jian Wushuang and whispered softly, Take care of this shrine, for life am in trouble. How? The words of the crickets fell, and Dao Yin waved with his right hand, as if the picture collapsed, and the lightning broke instantly. Boom! As a blast exploded, Jian Wushuang couldn't help but close his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, the mountaintop and Dao Yin Supreme disappeared. Instead, it was a desolate land. A piece of wall remains on this piece of land. Where is there any Dao Yin Supreme? Okay. Jian Wushuang saw this for a moment. Was it just a remnant of Dao Yan's supreme conversation with himself just now? The true Dao Yin Supreme, has the divine body broken? Just when Jian Wushuang's mind was full of thoughts. Ha 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 ha. The sky does not live up to me. Even let me get the full heritage of the Daqing Emperor. Daqing God Emperor. Is a loud laugh came, and Jian Wushuang heard the sound, and saw that the ice skimmer, who was also sitting cross-legged, not far from him, opened his eyes. And when Jian Wushuang looked at him, Bingyu Supreme also looked at Jian Wushuang. Next moment, he made a low smirk. Sword warriors, it's time we settled. Latest URL. Chapter 4504. At the heart of the land of gods. The sky was gray, and a piece of the earth was ruined, full of bleak scenes. Bing Extreme holds the Excalibur in his hand and twists his neck, his eyes flashing fiercely. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and held the hilt of the Tai Luo Excalibur with his right hand. On both of them, at the same time, they exude horrible momentum and amazing swordsmanship, heading for Shaohan. The sword intention of the two people, one is Sunsen, full of overbearing meaning, one is sharp, as if it can tear the sky into two. Immediately afterwards, these two horrible swords rose up, forming a terrible sword pressure, like a dragon and a tiger fighting, constantly colliding in the air, sending out a blast, and tumbling the land around them. This battle, whether it is too long for Jian Wushuang or Bingyu Supreme, the enmity between the two can be traced back to the ancient road to the sky over 100,000 years ago. Sword unparalleled, only one of you and me can fight alive today. Extreme eyes flashed, his face was full of bloodthirsty. Originally, when he was in the divine universe, he had realized a chance to break through the invincible Supreme. The result was that the battle with Jian Wushuang at the gate of the Taishu Shrine almost defeated him completely, and missed the opportunity to break through the invincible Supreme. Invisible, Jian Wushuang has become the demon-like existence of Bingyu's supreme nightmare. Sun Bingxi believes that as long as he kills the sword without double-clicking, the invincible indomitable heart will be fulfilled again. But he can try to break through the invincible Supreme again. Sword unparalleled. Today I will use your blood to forge the invincible avenue of my icy magpie. After a smirk, a wing formed of ice crystals appeared on the back of Bingyu Supreme. His right foot struck heavily, and the whole man burst into a flash, turning into a streamer and killing Sword Wushuang. This sword is coming to an extreme. Bing Extreme is fast, but Jian Wushuang is faster. Sword comes. Howl. Yan Jian Wushuang frowned, holding the 5 knuckles of Tai Luo's Excalibur's hilt clearly fingers, and pulled out instantly, like a shocking dragon by Hong, was pulled out of the scabbard by Jian Wushuang. There was a flash of electricity in Jian Wu's eyes. Ding! A crisp muffled sound sounded, and I saw that Binjia's Supreme Excalibur and the Terra Excalibur in the sword without hands have run into each other. The sacred sword is one of the 7 ancestors of the magical universe. Although this sacred sword is powerful, it is still worse than the sacred sword. I saw that after the two played against each other, the sword of God suddenly swung backwards, breaking a slight gap. Wu Jian Wushou held the sword with one hand. Except for the black robe's clothing corner being slightly blown by the strong wind, the whole person remained motionless and did not move at all. The fight is instant and the relationship between victory and defeat is known. As early as when Sun was in the virtual domain, Jian Wushuang was able to suppress Bingyu Supreme with the Elementary Supreme. Now Jian Wushuang breaks through the middle to Supreme. Alas! Bingyu Supreme pressed down the boiling blood in his chest, his eyes narrowed slightly, admiring. Jian Wushuang, your talents and strength. It is simply the creation of heaven and earth, the darling of the avenue. Every so often if you don't see it, your battle will soar. Although Bing Bingshuan said the words of admiration, the ice in his eyes did not decrease by half. Jian Wushuang, if you are a disciple of my 2 shrine, my Bingyu Supreme will definitely take you as the leader of the horse, and even the position of the master of the temple can be confided to you. But unfortunately, you and me have endless vengeance. Noise. Without waiting for him to finish, the sword's expressionless face was interrupted by both sides without expression. Bingao Xiaoyao, you can take out your strongest whole card directly, otherwise you will die today without doubt. Definitely death, isn't it? Upon hearing the words, Bing Bingshuan laughed loudly, holding the hilt of the sword of the Excalibur with both hands, stabbing the ground. Supernatural powers mirror flowers. Alas! I saw a circle of water under the sword's point. With the ice snorkeler stabbing towards the water surface, countless water flowers burst out. Instantaneously, these water sprays condense and turn into countless ice owls. Each of these incarnations has a full blow from Bingyu Supreme, which can be described as extremely difficult. At the beginning, it was too troublesome for Jian Wushuang. Swords that can only be forced to use the 4 seasons swordsmanship, one by one. But now nature is different. Kill. Bingyu Supreme drank a low drink, and for a while, thousands of Bingyu Supreme incarnations, all raised swords matchless. Boom. The next moment, these tens of thousands of incarnations, daring to kill the sword unparalleled. Bingao, is it still the same? You are too disappointed. Wu Jianshou looked at the overwhelming number of Ice Cream Supreme swords incarnations covering the sky, and shook his head expressionlessly. Soon he moved. Cut. Wu Jian stepped forward without a two-way forward, and the tailored Excalibur in his hand swept forward fiercely. Suddenly, a white sword light that was thousands of feet wide, and nearly 10,000 feet wide swept out instantly. The breadth is thousands of feet wide and nearly 10,000 feet long. What is this concept? This sword, just like a Tianhe crashed out of the same volume, directly split out a vast ocean. This is a sea of swords. This sea of swords directly covered the entire land of Fengshan, hitting tens of thousands of Moraine Supreme avatars fiercely. The majestic sword sea directly submerged thousands of Moraine Supreme incarnations. The original number is still a staggering number. The Moraine Supreme sword incarnation covering the sky. Under this sword sea just like ants in sky. What is the use of ants? When the sky falls, everything will be destroyed. Card. In an instant, the waves of endless sword seas slap away. In the sword seas, these incarnations are broken up into ice slags, and then washed by the sword seas. They are directly annihilated into fly ash. The Supreme Incarnation of began to collapse in a large area at an amazing speed. Rip. Then at this moment, the void in the land of the gods was torn. But it was the Ram Supreme that finally arrived. He hadn't had time to stand on his feet, and the scene in front of him was shocked. And he quickly waved his divine power to form a shield of light, blocking the predatory sword light. The two are fighting now. The cricket ram supremely looked expressionless. One sword cut out the sword Wu sword of Jianhai, and his eyelids jumped suddenly. This is the first time he has seen Jian Wushuang really make a shot. The visual impact of this scene has directly caused a stormy sea in his heart. Is the sword in Sword Wushuang so strong? Even the half-strength invincible ice mastiff is not his opponent? He took a cool breath, turned his right hand over again, took out a wooden staff again, and poked to the ground, blocking the sword's Yue. Chapter 4505. The ram supremely hid in the corner of the land of the gods, and watched the battle without blinking. At the beginning, he had originally planned to persuade him, but after seeing the momentum of the two, he suddenly stopped participating in his persuasion. Speaking of him, he is also a top-level supreme, placed in the universe, and that is also a great figure. But when he saw the battle between Jian Wushuang and Bingyu Supreme, he felt that there was no room for him to stand. These two are terrible. The cricket ram smiled and shook his head. Within the sword sea composed of sword light is like a rolling river, and it is like the raging waves of the angry sea. If it is not in this land of God, there are 99 prohibitions to isolate everything. I'm afraid that the entire universe sky will be blown out of the cave by the sword of Wushuang. Under the boiling sword sea, in just a few breaths, the Ice Lord's kendo incarnations all collapsed. He only had the real Bingyu Supreme, and he was in the sword sea, constantly slashing against waves of sword-light waves that beat him. Supernatural power, I am the Emperor. Boom! Suddenly, Bingyu Supreme has already fallen into a sluggish atmosphere, and the whole person has swelled at a very fast speed. The breath of horror spreads around him, shaking the world. Oh! Wu Jian's brow lifted, his expressionless face a little bit of warfare this time. Bingao, this is what it looks like. Come, show your strength, don't let me down. Zhang Jianhui's eyes flickered with war fighting, and the gods also unfolded. Yizhang, Shizhang, Baizhang, Qianzhang, Wanzhang, Shuanzhang. Suddenly, both Jian Wushuang and Bingyu Supreme were soaring gods rising up. The two men seemed to be transformed into an ancient giant, standing on top of each other, looking at the mountains, but at the knees. The two men seemed to raise their hands. They could hold the sun and the moon, and when they stepped on their feet, they could use the Milky Way as a foot bump. The eyes of the two of them looked like a burning sun. At the time of 150,000 feet, Bingyu Supreme stopped expanding. The breath of his whole body changed, and a crown made of glazed ice appeared on his head. His skin was covered with a thick layer of ice crystal armor, and only a pair of cold silver pupils were exposed. In his hands, divine sword disappeared, and turned into an ice crystal great sword. It's not over yet. On his back, the wings of ice crystals have condensed again, but they are widened countless times. As if with a light click, they can destroy the world. But Jian Wushuang is still growing. 200,000 feet. 21,000 feet. It was not until the 25,000 feet, the sword's inflated and enlarged body, that Kanken stopped. Originally had been as tall as the icy magpies of Zhoushan Mountain. Before the sword was double-sided, it suddenly became shorter. No words, the sword is double. He stepped out and stepped a mountain directly into the flat ground. His right fist was like pulling a bow to the full moon, and smashed severely towards the ice mastiff. Shi Zongsun's supreme repairs all broke out, condensing on his fist, and cooperating with his immortal domineering body that dominated the ancient world. It was like holding a sun on his fist, exuding fierce golden light. Rumble. This fist is extremely strong, and the overbearing power and sword energy on it have not yet blasted on the body of Bingyu Supreme, and they have emptied the void into a pit, setting off a shocking wave. Come, Jian Wushuang. Today you die or I die. There was a sense of madness on the face of Bing Extreme, and it was absolutely to the extreme, showing a spirit of indomitable. He lifted a giant sword like a glacier mountain, and severely chopped down at the sword unparalleled. Shocking explosion. Bingyu Extreme's body is violently violent. The overbearing power and horrible sword strength on Jian Wuxuang's fist directly follows the glacier great sword, like thousands of waves, and waves hit the Bingyu Extreme's body. Suddenly, countless ice crystals splashed, and the Moraine Supreme stepped back in 3 steps. Each step was as if an earthquake had been triggered. With his feet as the center, the earth began to crack like a spider's web. Bottomless gully-long marks. The sword in Wuxuang also groaned. His fist overflowed with pale golden blood, and his bones almost shattered. But even so, Jian Wuxuang's face was sneered. At that time, in the Taishu star field, the sword did not have the double-sided approach to Bingyu Supreme, and it was almost impossible to resist. The extremely poor ability could not hurt Bingyu Supreme. In the end, it was the last move of Tai Luo Jiandian that defeated Bingyu Supreme. But now, with his own power, he is enough to compete with Bingyu Supreme. Come again. Wu Jianxiu laughed loudly, his eyes flashed with war. I saw him step out, and began to run away, and once again raised his fist to kill the Ice Cream Supreme. Okay. Jian Wuxuang, I have to see how far you have grown. Su Binji's extreme face sank, and he also lifted the glacier sword, jumping up, and splitting towards the sword unparalleled. Good job. Talented, amazing life. Qi Jian Wuxuang laughed, and cast his life shock directly. A wave of coercion from the life level spread out instantly, letting the Bingyu Supreme move. This is the time when Jian Wuxuang bullied himself into the body. His hands condensed into fists, as if holding the sun and the moon in the palm of his hand, releasing endless brilliance. And it was a wild bombing towards the supreme chest of Bingyu. Ha! On sword of Wuxuang's unparalleled fist, the sharp sword exploded, and it exploded on Binji's supreme chest. For the current sword Wuxuang, in fact, it is not difficult to cut and kill Bingyu Supreme. He only needs to cast the 5th form of Tai Luo sword of Tai Luo, and Jian Wuxuang has confidence. This time, he can directly kill Bingyu Supreme. I didn't even have to worry about it. He directly released the corpse of Tai Luo, who is now hiding in the town's monument. Novel. The two together, even if they slowly grind as they want, they can grind the ice to death. But Jian Wuxuang did not choose to do so. He has to rely on his original and most original strength to thoroughly crush the ice cricket in all aspects. He wants to convince Bingyu to die. Ha! Wu Jian's unparalleled double fists hit faster and faster, like the same heavy artillery, and slammed into the ice chest's supreme chest like a storm. Countless ice crystal splashes. The thick layer of ice crystal armor on Sun Binji's body was crushed directly by Jian Wuxuang's fist. In the dense bombardment of Jian Wuxuang's fists, the supreme body of Bingyu began to tremble violently, and the whole person was constantly shaking like a sieve. His face quickly changed from blue to white, with blood flowing from his ears to his nose, and his breath became weak. Broken. With Jian Wuxuang's loud shout, he gathered a punch of Jian Wuxuang's whole body power and sword energy, and banged straight in the center of Bingyu Supreme's chest. Suddenly, Bingyu Supreme was hit by a raging locomotive, and the whole person flew out like a rag sack. He crossed a parabola in the air and smashed heavily on the ground, setting off a cloud of smoke and dust. Qi Jian Wuxuang retracted his fist and gasped slightly. The whole world, only him like a mountain standing alone. Chapter 4506. 2. Too fierce. This sword is unparalleled, it's not fierce human. In the distance, the ram stunned and watched the scene where Jian Wuxuang punched the ice cricket with his fist, and his whole body was shaking. There was no magical power between the two in the battle just now, only the original collision of fist to flesh, divine power and physical power. This battle is extremely brutal, and at the same time, the visual impact caused is also great. Between the two, each sword and punch can blast the sun and settle the galaxy. Pairs bang together, all directly trigger the starry sky storm. Chant. A cloud of mushrooms, thousands of miles wide, erupted, and the ice mastiff's body was as high as 150,000 feet. After it fell to the ground, it immediately triggered a magnitude 10 earthquake. Shaking violently. Cough. Cough. A violent cough sounded in the dust of the sky. Soon after, she saw the smoke and dust, and Bingyu Supreme stood up from the ground. His body has returned to its original shape, with silver hair and waist, pieces of clothes all over his body, and blood constantly flowing between his ears, nose and eyes. Jian Wushuang, your growth is amazing. Bing Extreme shook his head. Qi Jian Wushuang also began to shrink quickly, recovering the cost. I saw Jian Wushuang's black hair scattered, her eyes bright. Her eyes seemed to be connected with two stars, bright and energetic. Bingao, say goodbye to this world. Qi Jian Wushuang's expression was indifferent, and his right hand looked at his side, and took a breath. The Tai Luo divine sword, which was inserted diagonally in the distance, flew up, and shot into Jian Wushuang's hand, and was pinched by Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, do you think you won? Seeing this scene, Bing Bingsun's face was full of ice crystals and blood, but there was no fear at all, but he laughed out loud. Sword unparalleled. Do you think this place dared to come to you this time? Really do not have a whole card? Wu Jianwushuang heard his words and frowned slightly. Next moment, the expression on supreme face was suddenly replaced by. He opened his mouth and yelled, "Sword unparalleled, let's die!" Boom! I saw his right hand poking out like electricity, grabbed the bag around his waist and crushed it. With a horrible breath like a prison, spreading with this bag as the center. This breath is far above the Bingyu Supreme. This breath appears together, and the world is discolored. The earth is like a drop of countless bombs. It is flattened. Even the 99 prohibitions around him began to tremble slightly. Invincible Supreme. This is the breath of Invincible Supreme. In the distance, the Ram's supreme complexion changed greatly. Under this breath, he even had a feeling of being unable to bear to kneel and worship. And only one person could make him feel that way. That is the Invincible Supreme. Is this the breath of the Emperor Taishu? Wu Jian's pupil shrank a little, and immediately felt both funny and angry. Emperor Taishu, invincible and supreme, one of the main forces of the divine universe resisting the demon universe, even disregarded the overall situation. Regardless of his sword, Wushuang went deep into the demon universe for the divine universe. Life. I really are a too virtual god. Sword unparalleled, this seat said this time you it. Seeing the supreme appearance, Bing Bing laughed suddenly. His hatred of Jian Wushuang. From that day Jian Wushuang defeated him in front of the starry realm. In front of the eyes. He has been impressed endless. He has been proud all his life. Now seeing the adversary who is about to be able to reach the edge, how can he not be happy? How can he not be hearty? I bang bang bang. The breath of Xian has continued to rise. Over the sky, rolling clouds were formed, and numerous bull-thick electric snake thunders shuttled among them, crackling in the void. Immediately, he saw a majestic middle-aged man wearing a black gold crown, and wearing a royal robe, born in the Thunder Sea. For this person, he is a virtual shadow of Emperor Taishu. In the phantom of Emperor Taishu, the white thunder continued to flicker, and his eyes were indifferent. Bingao stop. Seeing this scene, the Ram Supreme couldn't bear it anymore, and swept out of the corner. Bingao, Jian Wushuang is the world's proudest man in our universe. The future has amazing potential. Maybe in the future, he will become the strongest person after the of the universe. The universe? Bingao, think about it. Now that you have killed the sword unparalleled, what's your benefit? Rather than wait for the end of this catastrophe, the two of you will compete with each other's strengths. The cricket ram snarled loudly as he approached quickly. Go away. However, at the moment Bingyu Supreme, where can I hear the second sentence? I saw him throw a big sleeve, and suddenly the Excalibur was ejected by him, slamming into the Ram Supreme, and hit the Ram Supreme and flew back. Ram! This seat warns you that this is a matter between this seat and Jian Wushuang. No one can interfere in today. If you dare to say a little more, believe it or not, this block killed you together? Bing Extreme looked coldly at the Ram Supreme, and issued a humming cry. Suddenly the Ram supremely chilled. At high altitude, the thunder of the sky was imprisoned, and a sea of thunder has formed. The shadow of Emperor Taixus God Emperor became more and more solid, slowly raised a finger, and pressed toward Sword Wushuang. This finger is a thunder river. Seeing the supreme tadpole ram, he could not help closing his eyes, and could not bear to look. This virtual shadow has the power of the Taishu Emperor. Although there is only one blow, it is an invincible and supreme blow. The difference between the invincible supreme and the ordinary supreme is simply a heaven and a ground. Throughout the ages, there is only one person who can fight with the supreme and the invincible supreme, and that is the supreme supreme. But Taro Supreme at that time was already the top supreme practice. What about Jian Wushuang? Qiu district is the most supreme. In terms of cultivation, not even him. Rumble. The void continued to explode, and the swordless pair of black hair flew up. Even before the finger fell, his body was already overwhelmed by the terror. This is simply Tianwei, far beyond human ability. For the first time in Jian Shuang's eyes, there was a solemn meaning. Do NT shake this finger. Even if he holds the Taro Excalibur in his hand, he can't resist this attack. Taro Supreme. Qi Jian Wushuang called back slightly. Suddenly, the void behind him cracked, and a stiff figure, wearing a black robe, stepped out of the void in one step. Boom! A supreme breath, like a blazing flame, soared from the corpse of Taro. Supreme? Jian Wushuang and helper. Who is this person? Suddenly, the Bingyu Supreme and the Ram Supreme were both shocked and raised their eyes toward the corpse of Tai Luo. Chapter 4507. This is? When everyone's eyes fell on the face of Tai Luo's corpse, they were all shocked. Who is this stranger who is covered in a black robe and only reveals a pair of eyes? Supreme Bingyan frowned. For some reason, he saw a slight uneasiness in his heart when he saw the strange supreme that suddenly appeared. He was especially cold, stiff like a dead body, which made him feel uneasy. However, when he released his divine power, he found that this corpse of Taro was only the first supreme master. And then he shook his head and stopped thinking about it. A mere junior supreme, there is no spray. Bing Extreme sneered. Looking at the finger that was about to fall on Jian Wushuang, his eyes were even more pleased. Boom! Suddenly, kill. Qi Jian Wushuang looked up suddenly. Looking at this finger, all magical powers were released. Talent is amazing, life is shocking. Talented supernatural powers, primitive universe. Dragon blood mystery, burning divine power. One after another the strength. Blessing on Jian Wushuang's body. Jian Wushuang's breath of immortality, soared again. Ha! The corpse of Tai Luo, who was behind him, even stepped on his feet, soared into the sky, turned into a sword, and smashed towards that finger. Like an egg hitting a stone, Tai Luo's corpse slammed into the finger of Tai Sushan Emperor, with a determined attitude. Click! Suddenly, the full power of Tai Luo's corpse exploded, and it exploded in the position of the fingertips of Tai Su God Emperor. But it was useless. Everything was useless. If it was the Taro Supreme in the heyday, holding the Taro Excalibur would be enough to kill the Emperor Taishu. But the current Taro Supreme is just an unconscious corpse. How can it be the invincible Supreme Taishu Emperor's opponent? In a short time, I saw the finger of the Emperor Taishu dimmed slightly, and the body of the Tai Luo burst away instantly, and his whole body was almost fragmented. Jian Wushuang saw this. His eyes could not help flashing the color of pity. If it was not helpless, he wouldn't let Tai Luo Supreme's body be in danger. Fortunately, although the corpse of Tai Luo is currently only an elementary supreme practice, the body is actually a top-level supreme. This finger, although the body of Tai Luo's corpse almost burst, but after all, it cannot be completely destroyed. Taro Sword Code 5th Style Taro. Qi Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, his eyes were frozen, and his voice slowly came out. As soon as this word fell, the starry sky of the whole land of the gods made a loud noise at the same time. Wow! The overwhelming endless lay high was torn directly, centered on the sword Wushuang. Each grain of sand and sand was suspended in the sky, transformed into a forest of swords, spreading thousands of feet. This is nothing. Behind the sword Wushuang, there is a huge FA phase that stands out from the sky. This Dharma looks like a blue shirt, with a handsome face, a long sword in his back, a hip flask in his hand, a dim and drunk eye, and a smile to ask who the world is. Unpredictable and unrestrained. This is the true Taro Supreme. This is the one that year, with a sword in hand, dared to laugh at the man with no husband, the first sword honor of all ages. This is the sword. Su Bingyu looked at it as if the gate of heaven was wide open, and stepped out of the imperial palace, as if his sword was unparalleled, and his heart seemed to be held tight by a pair of big hands. The last time he was defeated by this sword. Come on, let this sword settle down. Yin Jianhui's eyes showed the fearlessness of breaking the cauldron, holding the Taro Excalibur in both hands, and slashing down. Broken. Suddenly, the Tai Luo Fa phased behind Jian Wushuang. As the sword Wushuang made a chopping stance, Tai Luo Jianzuan and Jian Wushuang merged into one at this moment. Roar! As if there was a giant beast roaring and roaring, the fiery sword light was like a river of heavens, rolled up, across the sky, through the sun and the moon. The dazzling sword light closed the eyes subconsciously. For a moment, this sword and Taishu Emperor's finger crashed into each other. A piece of space like glass began to be covered with cobwebs and then shattered. A gigantic mighty sword that Jian Wushuang has never experienced, along with this sword, passed to Jian Wushuang. Suddenly, Jian Wu's body shape receded, and there were 1,387,800,000 pores in his body, all of which began to spill blood. After a while, between heaven and earth gradually calm, the bright brilliance gradually dissipated, the vision gradually began to recover, and the roar in the ears slowly disappeared. Wolverine's Bingyu Supreme and Ram's Supreme raised their heads and looked at the sword Wushuang. Tick, tick. This is the sound of the blood of God dripping on the ground. I saw that in the smoke of the sky, the figure of Emperor Taishu had disappeared. Only one person stood proudly. That's Jian Wushuang. His eyebrows were cold, his black robe was shattered, and a trace of red blood flowed down his wrist on the blade of the Taro Excalibur. And then on the Taro Excalibur, dripping to the ground. Not dead. Suddenly, Bingyu Extreme's face turned wild, and he couldn't believe 3 steps backwards, sitting on the ground with one buttock. The blow from Emperor Taixus Emperor failed to kill Jian Wushuang? The Ram Supreme, after a shock, the expression on his face was replaced by complexity. Medium Extreme, slammed the invincible Extreme without a hit. What kind of strength is this ancient and ancient? In the world, there are 3 million arrogants in the world. Only swords are unparalleled, and can be called arrogant. No. Impossible. Why is this so? At this moment, all the self-confidence and self-esteem of Bingyu Supreme are all fragmented. He looked at Jian Wushuang climbing up from the ground panicking, shaking his head, and saying something unconsciously, while trying to flee. Bingao, everything is over. Pedaling in the void, like the sword unparalleled by the sons of heaven and earth, slowly opened his mouth. The cymbal sound was calm, without any waves. He reached out and grabbed. Thousands of air conditioners locked the Bingyu Supreme, and the Bingyu Supreme flew upside down and fell into the hands of Jian Wushuang. He was held in his hands by Jian Wushuang, Bingo's supreme thoughts, as if he had awakened from the chaos. He looked at Jian Wushuang, his eyes were lost. Lost? At this moment, he was not afraid, no anger, and some were just confused. I felt as if I was missing something. As if I knew that the overall situation had been set. Bingyu Supreme lowered his head and sighed in silence. The point of the sword of Tai Excalibur pierced from his back, penetrating him throughout. The sword was double-sided and expressionless. When it turned over with its right hand, the sword of Tai Luo Divine Sword erupted, and it directly smashed the Ice God Supreme. Alas! Extreme vitality began to disappear, and the whole person fell straight from the void and hit the ground. I was like a painting on a sand painting, blown by the wind, and Bingyu's supreme body was scattered from my feet to my head. This time, Bingyu Supreme fell completely. Chapter 4508. Bingyu Supreme is dead. Resentment with Jian Wushuang, entangled with more than 100,000 years of the Ice Mastiff Supreme, was killed by Jian Wushuang Yijian in the land of Fengshan. In the world, there was a sound of wind. Jian Wushuang held the Tai Luo Excalibur in his right hand, with black hair flying all over his head, slowly raised his head, and looked towards the void. His pale golden eyes were calm. When stepping into the land of the from Bingyu Supreme, when he was going to die with Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang knew that only one person could stand in the end. That is his sword unparalleled. This is not arrogance, but his confidence. Far away, the ram stared at the scene stunned, his mouth opened and his whole body trembling. Bingyu died, and the one who had swayed the universe and ordered the world's heroes, the supreme master of Bingyu, who is the new master of Taishu Temple, fell into the hands of Jian Wushuang and became the soul of Jian Wushuang. It is already unknown how many supremes died in swordless hands. Snoring, the ram supremely panted, his chest constantly undulating. Bingyu supreme, only one line away from the invincible supreme. At the back, it was the sacrifice of the Emperor Taishu, which is still not the opponent of sword unmatched. It can be said, today's sword unparalleled is already the first person under the invincible supreme. Invincible supreme, his sword is unparalleled, and he is the undefeated king in the universe. Today's sword unparalleled, it is only the middle supreme, and it has the ability to kill half-step invincible supreme, even the weaker invincible supreme. I am afraid that sword unparalleled can beat his wrist. If you wait until the sword unparalleled break through the high supreme, or the supreme, or even the invincible supreme, who else can stop him in this world? Jian Wushuang, isn't it the second Taro? His thoughts flashed in the eyes of the ram supreme, and even a more amazing idea came into being. I'm afraid that until Jian Wushuang reaches the top state of supremacy, even if it is really Tu Luo Supreme Rebirth, it will not be Jian Wushuang's opponent. At that time, he was famous for the Titan Supreme, and was named the Titan Excalibur. I was afraid that he would change his name to Wuxian Excalibur. Shaking his head, the ram supremely felt terrified and did not dare to think further. Alas, Tai Luo's Excalibur entered the sheath inch by inch. The sword Wushuang looked at the ram supreme, and said, "Ram Supreme, have you seen enough?" The ram supreme laughed and walked out of the void. Jian Wushuang looked at the supreme ram, and shook his head. Regarding this ram supreme person, although there is not much contact, Jian Wushuang's perception of it is not bad. His personality is more peaceful, and he prefers the old and good type. Just looking at his situation just now, he couldn't help but want to go to Bingyu Supreme. Jian Wushuang pleading. After the two chatted casually, Jian Wushuang took the initiative to open Jintian Bay and let him in. If the Ram Supreme stepped out of the land of God with him, it is inevitable that someone with a heart will calculate. In case of rethinking the selection of the disciples of the sect of religion, there will be a lot of trouble. Therefore, after Jian Wushuang discussed it with him, the Ram's supreme and heavily damaged Taro corpse was included in the town's monument. After all this, Jian Wushuang looked back at the core of the once defeated god's land, carefully bent his hands and made a long bow. Jian Wushuang knew that Dao Yan's supreme body had been worn away, but instead of falling, it turned into countless divine powers, scattered between the heavens and the earth, to maintain the operation of the 99 Taos. "Brother, I'm leaving, and I'll see you later," Jian Wushuang said softly, and immediately hesitated, striding towards the outside of the prohibition. Duh. One step across the dark yellow forbidden layer. The feeling of being caught in the warm ocean struck again. Opening his eyes again, Jian Wushuang has appeared outside the 99th prohibition. Outside the 99th ban, no one arrived. Jian Wushuang shook his head, and immediately stepped away, rushing away. After Jian Wushuang went straight through dozens of prohibitions, he only saw the main gates of the virtual universe Tianjiao. With a movement in his heart, Jian Wushuang urged the crystals of virtual power in his body, turning all his divine power into virtual power. I saw that there were still dozens of Tianjiao disciples. After the elimination, there were only a dozen or so disciples. Each one was full of panic and disappointment. He looked around carefully, for fear of prohibiting the sudden trigger. Bombing. At that time, the disciples of Tianmen, who had a relationship with Jian Wushuang before, had been almost wiped out. Only the first disciple of Tianmen was still alive, but their robes were torn, their hair was scattered, and their wolves were extremely scared. However, Fu Chun, who is from the refining Shenzong, is missing, but he has fallen into the land of God. Shaking his head, Jian Wushuang did not intend to say hello to them. Once he stepped, he would pass by them. Now that it has been confirmed that the Lord of Life Jingu Palace survives and has received its avenues, this land of gods naturally need not be treated anymore. However, Jian Wushuang was about to pass them by. There was a loud shout, but it was a sudden explosion. Slow. I saw the disciple looking at Jian Wushuang with a gloomy face that day, and Pai Xiao did not smile. Sir, this is about to go? Don't tell us, what's the situation ahead? As soon as this remark ended, others also looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang heard his words and frowned, and replied slightly, the front is the same as here, but the power of restraint is much more turbulent and horrible, so I chose to return. Inability to move forward? Return here? I saw the disciples narrowed their eyes that day and sneered. I see that you have already entered the land of the gods and got treasures. Are you ready to leave? As soon as this remark came to an end, everyone in the audience was shocked. How is this possible? No way. Others were suspicious. The disciple twisted his neck that day and said loudly, Dear everyone, I have paid attention to this person before, and he is not restricted in the land of God. I saw him before during the battle with Yandan who refined Shenzong. A force of restraint suddenly avoided him when he was about to meet him. Think about it. The force of restraint is unconscious. Why would this person avoid it? And this person is obviously similar to us, and even lower. Why is he running in front of us? The words fell and everyone's face changed slightly. Before the battle between Jian Wushuang and Yandan, although the battle was short, and it was not an exaggeration to say that it was a spike, someone still noticed the scene. The first disciple of Tianmen didn't say it was okay. As a reminder, everyone immediately responded, Yeah, why is this so? This man has an unusual atmosphere in his flat. Why didn't he target him before the ban? Only kill us? Could he look so good? There must be something strange about this. Chapter 4509. Among the land of God, Tianjiao, who came from the top pedigrees, was quietly surrounded by the sword unparalleled and blocked the way. In just a few words, the first disciple of the heavenly gate has already placed the sword unparalleled. The first disciple of Tianmen looked at the reaction of the crowd, and then looked at Jian Wushuang, who was expressionless, indifferent, and even sneered at the corner of his mouth. He looked around the crowd and said with a loud voice, Dear everyone, I dare to say that this man must have a secret treasure that can hide his breath and avoid the power of restraint. Now that he has gained the benefit, he wants to leave. Do you agree? Killing heart. As soon as this sentence came out, everyone's faces shrank, their eyes narrowed, and Xiang Jian's eyes became ill and greedy. That's right. There must be some secret treasure in this person who can escape these restraining forces. We have died so many people, and it was so easy to come here, and you got the benefit, and now you want to leave. How can there be such a good thing in the world? Boy, surrender the secrets of your body, we let you leave safely. In my opinion, this person happened to make us a wedding dress, and we saved the risk and went further. Yes, in my opinion, we might as well kill the kid first, and then the treasures on him. Let's divide them one by one. For a moment, everyone stared at each other, smirking at the corners of their mouths. The evil of human nature is all bound by rules. Without rules, man will be like a beast, will not speak any morals, and release the most primitive greed and sin in human nature. And in this world of weak meat and strong food, respect for strength, the only constraint is who has the stronger strength and the harder fist. When the first disciple of Tianmen saw this, a sneer filled his heart. He didn't know if Jian Wushuang had a secret treasure, which could circumvent the restraining power of this God's land. He also didn't know whether Jian Wushuang entered the core position of God's land and obtained any treasure. But these are not important, as long as the sword is unparalleled enough. As for the reason, my Tianmen disciples are almost wiped out. Why can you survive alone? This is the biggest reason. Shaking his head, he looked at Xiang Jinshuang, with a hint of lightness in his eyes, as if the emperor had everything in his hand, and said, Sir, I heard you're called Wushuang, right? Now give you two choices. The first thing is that you just grab it, and give up all resistance. Maybe we can leave you safely after we have searched you. Second, we will attack in groups and kill you directly. Jian Wushuang heard the words, a smile on his indifferent face suddenly. He laughed and sighed, glanced at the first disciple and said sincerely, "Do you know why you died?" "Okay." The first apprentice in Tianmen frowned, some puzzled. "You died of too much talk." Jian Wushuang looked at the others who surrounded him again and said, "You know, why did you die?" Don't wait for them to reply. Jian Wushuang answered his own question. "You died of stupidity." Suddenly, the sword's 5 fingers were held on the hilt of the tailored Excalibur. Sword to cut. Boom! A white sword shaped on, like by Hong of Jinglong, suddenly pulled out of the scabbard of Tai Luo. Between the heavens and the earth, there is only this white swordman. A sword like a dragon, straight into the 9 clouds. The crisp sound of the sword like a bomb, exploded in the land of the gods. Under a sword, whether it was the first disciple, or the other 10 or so Tianjiao. Just like the ants looking up to the sky, they were extremely small. Suddenly, the first disciple of Tianmen raised his head, and looked at the sword mantle like the ocean and sea, with only terror on his face. Others were also replaced by shock on their faces. Under the lock of this sword energy, they could not even move their feet. Wow! Like a knife-cut tofu, this sword swept directly from more than a dozen Tianjiao. After a sword, heaven and earth returned to Qingming. Only Jian Wushuang remained, standing in the land of Fengshan. All Tianjiao was beheaded and killed directly by this sword, and even Fei Hui was not left. For the current sword Wushuang, these are nothing but 8-star, or 1-mark, 2-mark class vagrants. And it is easier to kill than kill an ant. Call out. Shaking his head, Wu Shou stepped down step by step, suddenly like a thunder, rushed towards the outside of Fengshan. Outside the land of God, Elder Shen Sickle looked somber and sat cross-legged. Boom! Suddenly, a dazzling sword light flashed in the land of the gods, and the Elder Sickle could not help but open his eyes to look. A familiar atmosphere is constantly rushing out. Someone came out. There was a hint of Mori Han in the eyes of the Elder Sickle, and he stood up, blocking the part of the exit from the land of God. On the other side, the Red Whale group headed by Luo Ming, the head of the family, also felt the breath in the land of the gods. Someone was about to rush out of his eyes. Only one person came out. Master Bingyu. Surely it's Lord Bingyu. Small boys, as I prepare to meet Master Bingyu, I wish you Bingyu triumphant return and victory. Luo Ming, the master of the house, cheered up and said with a smile, getting closer. In the crowd's perception, the people in this land of God are reaching the extreme speed, and they keep getting closer to the exit of the land of God. Next moment, a thin figure of black robes suddenly rushed out of the land of the gods. Mr. Bingyu. Not Mr. Bingyu. Who is this person? What about Lord Morina? The Red Whale helped everyone look at the figure of the black robe, and couldn't help but look. Elder Shin Sickle, his pupils suddenly shrank, and his face changed slightly. Miss Double. Suddenly, Elder Shin Sickle's face turned into an iron blue. Father and son have the heart, and the one who can most notice the breath of Yandan is the Elder Sickle. On Jian Wushuang, he felt the breath of Yandan death. Miss Shuang. Say, did you kill my son? Suddenly Elder Shunxian stared at Jian Wushuang sternly, shouting sternly. Sword Wushuang, who had just stepped out of the land of sealed gods, frowned slightly when he heard the question. Why is this sick guy here? He shook his head, and Jian Wushuang didn't take the matter seriously. Don't think about it. The Elder Xia was afraid to follow him all the way, and wanted to join Yandan in and out and assassinate him. I killed it, how? Jian Wushuang glanced at him and said lightly, it really is you. Seeing Jian Wushuang admitted so generously, the Elder Shinxian suddenly became angry and furious. His murderous eyes flashed to the extreme, roaring, Misty Double, you're here. Chapter 45:10. Boom! Endless power is gathered in the hands of the Elder Sickle. His whole robe agitated, his eyes flashed with murder, and a violent force shook the void. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes, and just holding the sword of the Tai Luo divine sword, He didn't know what he thought, and loosened his fingers again. Want to run? The elder sickle smiled angrily, waved the terror power in his hand, and turned to chase the sword unparalleled. Miss Shuang, you killed Yin Dan. No matter if you go to heaven today, this one will kill you. He growled in the back. Jian Wushuang did not look back, but sneered at the corner of his mouth. The elder sickle, as early as refining Shenzong, he moved his mind to kill this man, and then quickly. Originally he could not find a suitable opportunity, but now, the opportunity has come. However, this land of gods is a place that stirs up the situation, and the eyes of all the major forces gather. It is inevitable that the power of this sickle will be exposed, and it will easily cause trouble. It's better to lead it out, leave the land of the god, and then kill it with the sword. Ha! Elder Jian Wushuang and Shen Si were very fast. The two turned one after the other into a streamer, and soon left the land of God. In the empty land of God, there was only a group of people in the Red Whale Gang. Large big master. There is no breath in the land of God. A Red Whale Gang whispered. Master Bingyu, have you been killed in it? Another gang of Red Whale Gang spoke back. Luo Ming, the master of the Red Whale, did not speak, but hesitated on his face. Before entering this land of God, Xiuwei is the strongest, but the second-class Xiuwei. But Lord Bingyu has the strength to stabilize his existence. How could he be killed? If it weren't for the unexpected, there would be only one possibility. Luo Ming looked up sharply, looking at where Jian Wushuang left. He could have noticed before that Lord Bingyu had a strong animosity towards the boy from Wushan, called Wushuang. With the power of Lord Bingyu, he can be regarded by him and become hostile. At least it must be a level of existence with him, right? Go. Let's catch up and see. Luo Ming opened his thoughts. Bang! I saw the space warship from the Red Whale Gang speeding up and chasing towards the place where Jian Wushuang and Elder Shen Sickle disappeared. Call out. Ha! Jian Wushuang and Elder Shen Sickle kept flying in the air one after the other. The sword has no two sides and no expression, and the speed is not fast or slow. It has not completely shaken the Elder Shen Sickle, but also kept a distance just able to hang him, and gradually swept to the remote part of the universe. Damn it! The Elder Sickle had a somber expression, and his anger had completely stunned him. He didn't think about why an 8-star dummy in Jian Wushuang could cut and kill Yin Dan, who broke through the mark. He also didn't think about why he could not catch up with Jian Wushuang, because of his 4 marks. He now has only one idea in his head, that is to catch up, to kill the sword unparalleled. After a few hours, under the force of the two, they have crossed several star fields, and have a distance of nearly 10 million miles from the land of the gods. The two gradually entered a desolate star field. Just here, Jian Wushuang's imagination spread out, and found that there were no silhouettes, and after Chi-Chi's eyes locked on it, he couldn't help taking a deep breath, and gradually stopped. Ha 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 ha, fog double. You run. Why don't you run? When the elder Shen Sickle saw this, he suddenly laughed excitedly. He only thought that Jian Wushuang was exhausted and could not escape. Miss Shuang, since you can't escape, then you are ready to die. Go and be buried with my son. Immediately, the elder Sickle laughed and calmed down, replaced by endless resentment. Yin Dan was his life's work. Distracting sickle. Ha! He flipped his right hand, and a black sickle tied with a chain as a handle appeared in his hand. The black light on the blade of this sickle not only has extremely powerful attack power, but also hooks out the monk's spirit, and is imprisoned on the sickle forever, suffering torture day and night. This is the notorious murder weapon of this virtual universe. As soon as this distracting sickle came out, there was a sound of ghosts crying in the void, as if there were countless injustices and ghosts imprisoned in this sickle, roaring and roaring. The sword Wushuang turned around, holding the hilt of the Tai Luo Excalibur with his right hand, his expression indifferent. This elder sickle is a 3-mark practice, corresponding to the supreme of the divine universe. If Jian Wushuang has not yet broken through the medium supremacy, it may be quite tricky to deal with this person. But after breaking through the medium supreme, the elder sickle to him, but the invincible ants. Shen-Si, you want to see your son Yin-Dan? Sword Wushuang faintly spoke. What do you think? Elder God Sickle sneered and asked. Now he doesn't want to talk to Jian Wushuang at all. Between his words, the distracting sickle in his hand has turned into a black streamer, and he shoots at Jian Wushuang's ground-breaking. Very well, then I will do as you wish, and I will send you to accompany him. Jian Wushuang nodded his head, and the corner of his mouth suddenly opened a low smile. Dead. Ha! The sword was doubled. This move is like a thunder blast. Taro Sword Code Second Style Dawn. A golden light appeared. The whole world is like this line of golden light tearing and spreading thick Xiamang. Fortune Bell God Show, Yin and Yang are separated. This sword splits the heavens and the earth from Yin and Yang. When? A crisp sound came, and the dawning sword light transformed by the sword unparalleled, was directly mounted on the parting sickle that came from the laser. Suddenly, this notorious distracting sickle was full of dense cobweb-like mouths for only a short time. Ha! Spurred again by the sword, suddenly the whole handle was broken and broken. The sword unparalleled, like Jin Long, passed through the body of the elder sickle. Puff! The figure of the sword unparalleled appeared behind the elder sickle, scattered all over the body with golden light. A human-shaped cave has appeared in the chest of Elder Shenxian. This power. Elder Shenxian turned his head blankly, staring at Jian Wushuang in shock. You hide Xiawei. No, you really are not from our universe. The elder sickle's face showed a sorrowful look, but before he could say a word, the breath quickly languished, and the whole person dissipated and perished at the speed visible to the naked eye. I hate it. In the extremely reluctant voice of Elder Shin Sickle, his whole body shattered by sword gas began to disintegrate. Sword Indifferent did not answer the words of the elder sickle, but looked at the elder sickle so calmly. The body collapsed and disintegrated, and then dissipated in the heavens and the earth. Chapter 45:11. Elder Shunxian is dead. As Jian Wushuang said, since Elder Shunxian could not bear Yindan, then he became a good man once and sent Elder Shunxian to accompany Yindan. This time, I went to the land of the gods and gathered a lot of arrogant people in the virtual universe. They were all killed by Jian Wushuang. Speaking of which, can I count the curve to help the divine universe? Jian Wushuang shook his head slightly indifferently. Bang! Just then, a loud boom came from the sky. Okay. Jian Wushuang looked up and saw the head of the Red Whale gang, driving a space battleship, quickly moving towards this side. On the battleship, Luo Ming's two-footed foot stand was looking at Jian Wushuang with his eyes on him. And before driving to Jian Wushuang's side completely, he saw Jian Wushuang holding the sword to his right, and the Elder Shin sickle gradually disappeared. Suddenly, the big head Luo Ming's eyes on Jian Wushuang only felt as if they were invisible. Two Shindians shot from Jian Wushuang's eyes, and his heart trembled instantly. In a flash, he reacted, and he was definitely not an opponent of Jian Wushuang. The Elder Shunxian also noticed that his 3-strength power is only a small level lower than him. He asked himself that although he could also kill the Elder Sickle, he would never be as freehand as Jian Wushuang. With a slight blink of his eyes, Luo Ming could not help but think of the Ice Cream Supreme without sound, and quickly exclaimed, "Hurry up! Turn around, don't move forward." Then, the aggressive Red Whale helped everyone to quickly turn the space battleship and shoot towards the way. Come where you want to go where you want to go. Jian Wushuang saw this and could not help but sneer. Ha! At the next moment, Sword Wu stepped on his feet, his body swept away, turned into a cannonball, and rushed towards the battleship of the Red Whale gang. No! This of chase is here, run away! Suddenly, the Red Whale helped the big head Luo Ming startled with a shock. Boom! Finally, the U-turn was complete, and the spaceship fire was fully fired, flying away. Jian Wushuang chased for a long time, and found that he could only keep up with the speed. After he couldn't catch up, he couldn't help laughing. He raised the Taro Excalibur, and pointed his sword at Luo Ming on the spaceship. The Red Whale gang, right? If you move forward 10 feet further, believe it or not, this dare to kill you in your nest and cut off the grass? The sound of the sword unparalleled sounded like a blast of thunder. Huh! Suddenly, the space warship of the Red Whale suddenly braked, and stopped in the 10 feet. Luo Ming looked back at Xiang Jianwushuang, and felt anguish in her heart. What's the fun of my special mother's visit? This is all right, I was arrested. Jian Wushuang looked at the stopped space battleship, stepped out, and the universe star sky shrank at his feet. After only 3 steps, Jian Wushuang landed on the bow deck of the space battleship. Mist and Mister. Little ones haven't seen anything. They don't know anything. Luo Ming looked at the sword Wushuang who came with the sword, and his face became frightened, and when he knelt to the ground, he shouted continuously. When Jian Wushuang saw the situation, he shook his head. This 4-marked virtuoso, who was unexpectedly so cartilage. This seat asks you, how did you meet that being you? Jian Wushuang said lightly. He is not a man of indiscriminate killing. But if this group of infamous star thieves knows their identities, they can only do one thing that kills them and kills them. Masters back and back to the misty fog. The young children who led the Red Whale gang that day were sweeping through the stars of the universe, and were planning to find the idea of the Beating Teeth Festival. They just came across the ice cream grandma who was alone. Well, I encountered the lack of morality of Bingyu, and was about to go and rob a whole treasure, but the result was not his opponent. Luo Ming said quickly, Jian Wushuang can be considered to understand the cause and effect. The thing is very simple. It is a story of robbery. After he finished speaking, Jian Wushuang didn't reply, but his face was cloudy for a while. Looking at it like this, these star thieves should not know their true identity, or even know that there is a different universe. After all, this kind of thing is the most secret, whether it is in the divine universe or the virtual universe. Only the small group of people standing at the top of the universe can be qualified to know about the 2 universes. Although this Luo Ming has 4 marks of virtual respect, but his root identity is too low. Obviously there is no channel to know these things. Thinking of this, Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed a little hesitation. After thinking for a while, when Jian Wushuang couldn't help but chose to do something, Luo Ming seemed to notice the flash of murder in Jian Wushuang's eyes, and said quickly, "Master Wushuang's life. As long as Wushuang adults are willing to let go of the young, and the young are willing to respect you, from then on, for your adult, you will be saddled up and down the horse." As she talked, Luo Ming raised her face and continued to flatter and smile. Jian Wushuang saw this, and couldn't help seeing the joy in his heart. The killing in his heart was reduced by a few points. He shook his head and said, "You and Bingyu say the same thing?" Luo Ming heard the words, and could not help but smirk, and scratched his head. Jian Wushuang didn't ignore him anymore. But after thinking for a moment he said, "This seat is not incapable of letting you go. In this way, let this seat plant a ban in your source of life. Then obediently, for my use, this seat will no longer embarrass you." How? As soon as this remark came to an end, Luo Ming's heart was overjoyed. Let Jian Wushuang plant a ban in the root of life, which is equivalent to giving his life to Jian Wushuang. In the future, life and death are just a thought of Jian Wushuang. But how about that? If you do not agree, waiting for yourself will only follow in the footsteps of the elder sickle. Luo Ming can become a star thief who everyone shouts, but he has lived well now. In addition to his outstanding strength, there is the most important point. Observe the master. Luo Ming quickly slammed his 3 heads at Jian Wushuang, released his defense, and let Jian Wushuang's big hand rest on his skull, and planted a destruction prohibition in his body. The other red whales helped everyone, and it was so true when they saw the big head. They naturally agreed. Jian Wushuang made the same way. After a while, I saw the red whale helping people who were full of boats, kneeling down towards Jian Wushuang one after another, and shouted in congratulations. "Ill wait, to welcome the young masters of the mist." For a while, the voices of the Shuangshou master came together, and went straight to the sky. They know that Jian Wushuang will be their king. Jian Wushuang stood on the deck, and nodded expressionlessly. "Get up." Chapter 45:12. Wow. As the sword Wushuang's right hand was lifted, and time passed, everyone on the deck of the space battleship rose up. Young master, what do we need to do? Luo Ming's eyebrows were pleasing to the eye, and he said congratulatingly. For him, obedience to sword unparalleled, but obedience to obedience supreme changed individuals, and there was not much discomfort. Jian Wushuang thought for a while
Rather
and
than
said,
let Jian Wushuang
"You are business
and
as
Bing Yu
usual,
supreme both
but
in
you
their
need to
enmity
pay
and the
attention
virtual
to the
universe,
dynamics of the top
weak
forces
blues,
and the
but
strong
any
trace
win,
level person,
and no one
who
can
has
say
any
good
top
things."
forces
The
suddenly
Zhou was
leaves the
silent for a
Zhongmen
while
and behaves
and then
abnormally.
smiled and said,
Yes,
"But finally
Luo
there is
Ming
good
nodded.
news. For the
I
Red
know the
Whale
situation
Gang,
of Dao
there is
Yan,
not much else.
although the situation
many
is not
people.
very good.
Well,
He has not
Jian
fallen,
Wushuang groaned
and he
for
may
a
have no
moment or
chance
two,
to rescue
and
him
then
in the
said
future.
again,
Also,
As for
you
what
send
Elder
people into
Banshan
the
told
void to
you,
investigate.
the old man
Don't
also
miss
noticed
every
that
crack
in our
the
divine
void.
universe,
See if there are
there
a
must
lot of
be a
people in the
virtual
void
universe,
cracks.
a
Or
chess
abnormal
piece that was
images
laid
such
many
as stern
years ago.
defense.
It's
If
just
found,
that
the
this person has
investigation
been
will be
rooted
cleared
deep in
back
our
to
camp
me.
for many years.
After speaking,
In this fashion
Jian
is not the
Wushuang
time to
stretched out
solve
his
him.
fingertips a bit
Oh,
on Luo Ming's
Jian
eyebrows,
Wushuang raised his
locking
eyebrows
the
when he heard
induction
the
between
words
the two,
and said, and then if he
in the
needed
heart
to
of
pass
Lord
a
Morpheus,
message or the like,
who has this person
Luo
been
Ming
confirmed?
could pass the voice directly
It's okay to
him.
talk about it.
Yes,
But the old
obey
man
the
already
Lord's
has
order.
some doubts about
Luo
this
Ming
person.
didn't shirk
Well,
and nodded
Jian
heavily.
Wushuang, take
Although
care
he
of yourself
wondered,
over there.
why did Jian
The two
Wushuang
chatted
ask
for a
him
few
to
more
investigate the
seconds,
void,
and then the God
focus
of
on the
God
movements
hurriedly
of the
hung up
top
the
forces?
call. It can be
These
seen
things are
that
not
when
something
Jian
that a
Wushuang was
disciple of
exploring the
refining
news
God
in the
should pay
virtual
attention
universe.
to.
However,
The
he has
universe
always
was
been
not
clever,
idle,
knowing
and he
that
had
there are
begun
some
to lay
things
out
that
to
should
deal
not
with
be
the
asked,
things in the
so
virtual
don't
universe.
ask them.
Not
Asking
long
will
after
only bring
hanging up the
himself to
phone with
death.
Zhou God,
Since Jian
Jian
Wushuang said
Wushuang released the
obediences,
Ram
he
Supreme
is a
from the
decent
town
person.
monument. The
Well,
two
you go.
agreed.
Sword
And when they met
Wushuang
together
nodded
in
with
the void,
satisfaction
they dispersed
and waved his
the
right
sword
hand to
warriors
let the
turned
Red
back
Whale
to the
Gang
land
away.
of the gods.
A moment later,
Found the giant
in the
bone
universe,
bird, only
and stepped
Jian
over
Wushuang
and
stood
stepped
alone.
on the backbone
The
of the
people
giant
of the
bone
Red Whale
bird.
Gang have
The
been
bone
reduced
bird
to
made a
0,
long sing,
according to
and
the command
immediately
of
turned
Jian
its
Wushuang.
wings into a streamer.
Part of them went to the
shooting
forbidden
towards the
space,
Lianshan zone,
and part of them
month
went
later.
to the top
Wow.
sections.
The
Jian
giant bone
Wushuang
bird
did not
stopped
leave
in
in a
front
hurry,
of the Lianshan
but
zone
landed
mountain
into a
gate,
deserted star,
and Jian Wushuang
and his
stepped
body
down
shot directly
and walked
into the
towards
heart
the
of the
sovereign's
earth.
hall.
Taking
In
out
this
the God of
month,
God
Jian
token,
Wushuang
I
kept
saw
on the
that the
road
mirror
nonstop,
surface of the
but he
token
did
was
not know
twisted,
that the matter of
and a
sealing
ripple
the
like the
land of
water
God
surface
directly
appeared.
set off a big
Immediately,
earthquake in
the
the
face of
entire
Zeus
virtual
appeared in the
universe.
mirror.
All the
Tianjiao,
Tianjiao
who went to the land of
in the
God's
mirror,
seal, was wiped
Zhou
out
God
by the
nodded
army.
towards Jian Wushuang.
No one lived.
When
When
this
this elder
news
came
came
back to the
Sword
respective
warrior
ancestors
slightly
of
arched his
Tianjiao,
hand, suddenly,
and then told
the
of
top
the universe
forces
that
of the
he had
entire
recently
virtual
received the
universe shook.
information.
In the past
And at the
years,
same time
the
admitted
top
frankly
sectarian forces
that he had
sent
battled
Tianjiao
with
to
the
the land
God
of the
supreme,
gods and beheaded
although there
him.
were deaths and
Hearing
injuries.
this news,
There has
was
never
no
been an
surprise on
entire
the face of
military
Zhou God,
annihilation
but
like
he
this
sighed
time.
softly.
And that's not
The
much.
old man guessed
The most
that this
amazing
would be the
thing
case
is that the
enmity
enmity
between
between you and Bing Yu
calculated the death
has
time
reached
of
a point
Tianjiao
where it
under
is
the door,
endless and difficult
which was
to
a shocking
resolve.
discovery.
After a long
This time,
accumulation of
the 10
hatred,
strongest
the old
Tianjiao,
man has sent
who
you
went
to
to
the
the
land
land
of
of
virtual
Fengtian,
universe
actually
together
fell
this
at the
time.
same time.
I want to make
What is
the
this
two of you
concept?
completely in the
It is
virtual
tantamount to
universe
having a
and
terrifying
settle the
force far
dispute
beyond
between the
these two of
people
you.
in the land of
Otherwise,
the gods. Once the
killing
war
them
of
all in an
catastrophe
instant.
begins,
This
if
is
we can't
definitely
unite
not
as
a
one,
means of prohibition.
we will calculate each
For a
other,
while,
and sooner or
WWW
later will
dot.
cause great disaster. Jian
The
Wushuang
novel,
nodded when he
The
heard
Land
the
of the
words.
Gods of
He
Gods was
understood the
surging,
mind of the
refining
universe.
Shinzong also
As the
received
Lord of
this
the
message.
universe,
Mist
the
of
of
the
the
mist,
universe is like
the
the monarch
disciples
of a
responsible
country.
for guarding
When
the
he pays
Lord's hall
attention
looked
to
at
his
his technique
calm
of balance,
and unscathed
a bowl
Jian
of water
Wushuang,
must be leveled,
and he could not help
if it
but
is in
widen
the
his
divine
eyes.
universe,
And there was an
Jian
unbelievable
Wushuang
color in
and
his
Bing Yu
eyes.
Supreme,
Doesn't
will
it mean
inevitably
that all
fall
the
into
people
an
who went to the
embarrassing
land of the
situation.
gods have fallen?
If you intervene,
What's up?
you will
Jian
inevitably be
Wushuang frowned.
biased.
With some
At that
doubts in
time,
his heart,
there will always be a
immediately
bit of
he
hatred
said in
in
the
the
other
voice.
party. And
Trouble
if you don't
inform the
step
suzerain,
in,
just
Wushuang
ignore
has
it,
something to say,
and
and it will attract verbs.
Chapter 45:13. The disciple in charge of guarding the sovereign's hall took a short while to react, and quickly apologized and smiled at Jian Wushuang, then turned and entered the sovereign's hall. Not long after, the disciple came out and whispered, "Wushuang, let's go in. Lord Sovereign is in there." But Lord Sovereign seems to be in a bad mood. "If you have any bad news, how many say it again?" "I know." Jian Wushuang smiled at him, then strode into the sovereign hall. The sovereign hall is dark all the year round, and the candlesticks made from skulls emit a faint light. There is no evidence of natural sovereign hall, and with a little investigation, only a little dark, we can know that the red whale has recently come and saw the Lord Lianshan sitting on a red whale went to the land of the gods. They also made a huge momentum, which can be investigated. His elbows against the armrest, the Lord of the refining god frowned. His face was tired. Later, obviously, the master of the refining death also hit him to a certain extent. Why he could escape from the sky. Master Sovereign. In response to this, Jian Wushuang arched his hand at him. also had a countermeasure. Lianshan took out the heavily damaged then took a deep breath and sat telling upright. That he relied on the Taro corpse to resist a breath what he found in the land of the gods. The Lord of the refining gods slightly sensed the injuries on the corpse of Tai Luo and found that the terrible divine power fluctuations Jian Wushuang was in a daze by the blow of Tai Luo on the way back. Still he had already set up answers to various and he no longer doubted unexpected situations. He stepped back first, and his face was shocked. Lord needs to think carefully. God. After a while, Elder Sickle has fallen. The master of the refining Lord waved Sovereign. His hand wearily. I only know about signaling that the sword Wushuang but I didn't was leaving. That Elder Shin Sickle also. Jian Wushuang condescended. Not long after Yandan died, Elder Shinxian there was a return to silence. The Lianshan Zong inside nodded. The gloomy Lord's then hall. His eyes narrowed. The Lord of the refining god reached out a little bit more eyebrows. Looking his at eyes Jian looked far away, he said, and his eyes kept thinking. Just now on the message of the Taro of Jian Wushuang, he sensed a strong wave of divine power. This wave of divine power, I followed you in terms of strength. Presumably you should know how Yandan and Elder Shin invincible supreme of the divine universe. Heard the words, then everything naturally not help but show his doubts. I'm afraid Elder God pretended to is also dead in the hands of the invincible supreme of the divine universe. The death of Elder God Sickle has something to do with the penetration of the divine universe. The Lord of the refining God heard that he did not answer Jian Wushuang's question directly. I am afraid that the war is about to begin. Miss I have to plan for the refining of the saint of God early. Why this time when you went to the land of God? Once the war is everyone about to begin, died. He will be summoned by the void God's invitation to go to the battlefield of the void, the land of the gods, to form an army. Many of them have been cultivated a lot higher than you. No one can say whether they can come back this time. Jian Wushuang heard the words. You have to decide on the next master's choice. It seemed that he was hesitant to say. The light of the Lianshan monarch's after struggling for a long while. It was not long before he bit his teeth. Is the fog master? Yandan was indeed killed by me. While under the mountain, to blame the disciple, Jian Wushuang encountered the enchanting woman Jimu again. Soon after we entered the land of the gods, he wanted to kill me. Her lips opened slightly to fight against him, and she wanted to say something. As for how the elder Shinxian died, she sighed the disciples really don't know. Jian Wushuang shook his head and had no intention to talk to her, and shot straight into the seventh corpse hole on the top of the mountain. And there was a touch of anger in his face, and sealed the gate of the corpse hole. Jian Wushuang released the corpse of Tai Luo from the void with a slight pity in his eyes. And the refining god Sovereign asked again. Jian Wushuang sat down with his hands on his knees, about the elder Sickle and innumerable divine power poured into his hands. Why the people of other sects into died. The corpse of Tai Luo. You don't tell me. Suddenly, the body of Taro's corpse, in this regard, like a rag sack, Jian Wushuang began to recover quickly and bowed his head and replied, "The Lord Sovereign didn't know. When we entered the land of God's seal, there was a strong one in the Red Whale gang. This person's cultivation is at least 5 marks. Not only can he ignore the prohibition in God's seal land, unblocked and killing in it." Jian Wushuang said slowly, pushing all the responsibilities to be new supreme. Chapter 45:14. After 3 months of enrichment, Taro's corpse finally recovered a lot. Although there were still some injuries, it was no harm, and will gradually recover over time. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang finally took a long breath. Close. With a big wave of his hand, the sword Wushuang put the corpse of Tai Luo into the town's monument. During these 3 months, the news of the land of God gradually spread, and it was no longer limited to being spread in the hands of the patriarchs, but spread throughout the universe. Suddenly, Lien Xinzong was uproaring. Brother Yandan is dead? Not only Brother Yandan died, but also Elder Shin Sickle and the accompanying Rookie Fuchen all died. This time, only Wu Shuang came back alive from the land of God. Countless disciples of refining Xinzong whispered. Subsequently, the Sovereign Lord announced the death news of Yen Dan and Elder Shin Sickle. Although the refining suzerain did not say exactly how Yen Dan died, countless disciples of refining suspiciously guessed Jian Wushuang's head. The feud between Jian Wushuang and Yen Dan is obvious to all, and Yen Dan is a man who must report. These disciples have long been determined that this time when going to the land of God, there will be a life-and-death battle between Jian Wushuang and Yen Dan. Then Jian Wushuang is back alive now. The victory or defeat of this battle is self-evident. Yen Dan's death is not so simple, but involves the most important issue later. The refining God sovereign is about to abdicate. Yen Dan was originally the replacement of the next refining God sovereign. If Yen Dan dies, who will take over the position of the refining God sovereign? Suddenly, countless people set their eyes on Jian Wushuang's head. The ultimate qualifications are enough to compete with Yen Dan, even stronger, and supported by Elder Wind Elders. This is almost the perfect candidate for the next sovereign. As a result, many disciples or ordinary elders who originally followed Yen Dan and intended to be slaves of the dragon minister approached Jian Wushuang and released their good intentions towards Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's performance is also remarkable. One by one accepted the goodwill conveyed by these people. The top of the moon. Jian Wushuang sat on the stone bed in the corpse cave cross-legged, bid farewell to a refining elder, shook his head slightly. Originally, he lurked undercover refining Xinzong for the purpose of inquiring information. However, he did not expect that he would become the first master of refining Xinzong. Fortune is really confusing. At this time, from the long-lived Red Whale gang who came to his head, Luo Ming's rumor came from his mind. Young master, our people have discovered the situation in the void. Luo Ming was tired, but more excited voices came. Directly said the point. Jian Wushuang replied indifferently. Yes. Luo Ming gave a respectful response and quickly replied. Young master, according to our inspection, a total of 97 voids were found in the void, and these 97 void cracks were guarded by the strong, but the first 89 cracks in the void are a bit weird, because our people were there and found the traces of the ancient Hengxuan that disappeared long ago in the void universe. Gu Heng Su Zun is a peak strongman who became famous before 50,000 virtual times. He once dominated the characters of an era, but before 30,000 virtual times, that is, his coercion on our virtual universe reached the highest peak. When he disappeared for no reason, the people of the original virtual universe thought that Gu Heng Su Zun had fallen unexpectedly, but he never thought that he was hiding in the void forbidden space. In addition, around the 89th void, there are many other virtual force fluctuations that are not weaker than Gu Heng Su Zun. The small estimates are all in the same era as Gu Heng Su Zun, or even older. Character. They were all hiding around the void crack, and something must have happened. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded when he heard the words, and his heart was slightly happy, but Gujing Wubwa said on his face, You marked me with a detailed map of the void forbidden area, and put it in your Red Whale base camp. This seat will be picked up from time to time. Remember to mark the 89 cracks with extra care. Yes, master, no problem. Luo Ming quickly patted her chest and promised. Well, are there any other visions of other top forces? Jian Wushuang asked casually. Back to the young master. No abnormalities have been found for the time being. It is good. Jian Wushuang nodded his head and casually commanded. If you have enough staff, Go and help this place investigate an organization called Bite?" As soon as the voice fell, Luo Ming's face changed greatly. "Bite? Master, have you caught these lunatics? You know them?" Jian Wushuang frowned and came to interest. Luo Ming, who was at the messenger's face, became dignified, holding her breath. "Young master, little does not know much about phasing, or the entire virtual universe. Not much about this organization. All I know is that they are mysterious and powerful. They are usually not exposed to the universe, and belong to a hidden world. No one knows where they are hiding, but once they are born, major events in the universe are bound to happen. Among them, the leader of the Bite organization, the powerful one, is far more powerful than I can guess. I remember that there was a son of a 6-mark vain respecter, who angered the Bite organization, and was killed. The Lord of the Holy Land's 6-marked virtual respect went to seek out the trouble of the organization, and wanted to get justice for the dead son. As a result, the 6-marked virtual respect was directly beheaded by the phasing organization. Even the Manchu, they were all implicated. All the tens of thousands of disciples, including the elders of the trace class, were all beheaded and killed overnight." Jian Wushuang heard his words. His pupil shrunk slightly, and after a moment of groaning he said, "Let us stop investigating the phasing organization for the time being, and continue to stare at the trends of the top forces." "Yes." Luo Ming heard a sigh of relief, and if Jian Wushuang strongly asked him to look for the investigation of the organization, he would not dare to refuse, but he was convinced that as long as he dared to investigate the organization, he would definitely cause death. A few more words were ordered. Jian Wushuang broke the communication between the two. Jian Wushuang reached out his finger, wrote the word "bit" on the stone bed and frowned. The death of Taylor Supreme is related to this Fey, and the corpse of Terra S is also sold by the Fey organization to the Refining God sect. At that time, in the Jiuyao star field of the divine universe, the group of mysterious black robes, who claimed to be 7 and 9, was also from the Sweet organization, looking for Master Xuani. What is the purpose of this group of people? What is the relationship between them and Master Xuani? Without a word for a night, Jian Wushuang reached out his hand, brushed off the word "bit," and looked up outside the cave. A ray of sunlight has entered through the entrance of the cave. Jian Wushuang stood up and exhaled a sigh of breath. Chapter 45:15. Days passed by in such waves and tranquility. For several years, in addition to the occasional communication with Luo Ming, Jian Wushuang exchanged elders with Elder Banshan, or Elder Feng from time to time. In addition, Jian Wushuang immersed himself in cultivation, and cultivated himself by hand, revealing himself to the mark. This naturally caused a great shock in the refining Shinzong, and some people who were still erratic had completely determined Jian Wushuang, and would become the next candidate for the reign of Shinzong, and leaned towards Jian Wushuang. The sovereign lord of the gods seemed to plan the same way. Occasionally he called Shang Jian Wushuang to go to the Lord's Hall, and talked about the Tao, and then he fought with Jian Wushuang, and then repeatedly confirmed the identity of Jian Wushuang. Secondly, he also hinted at Jian Wushuang leaving soon. Jian Wushuang is likely to take over the position of sovereign. The virtual force universe seems calm, but the divine universe is different. In several correspondences with the gods of the universe, Jian Wushuang learned that in the extraterrestrial battlefields of the divine universe, the imaginary attack on the divine universe by the virtual universe has become more and more, and the war is likely to be triggered immediately. On this day, outside the refining god sect, a stranger suddenly came, refining the hall of the sovereign of the sect. A strong, burly old man with white hair and waist, and a bare upper body, wearing only a pair of black trousers, slowly turning 2 silver in his hands. The white-haired, burly old man's bare upper body was covered with scar-like long scars, and the 2 silver spheres turning in his hands played a soft sound like a thunderous thunder every time they collided. Electric arc. He just stood there, and there was a gulf like a prison, like a mountain of Wuxia Taishan spreading out, even faintly overwhelming the Lord of Refining God. Master, you are here this time. Is that battle finally about to begin? The sovereign lord said humbly and haughtily. Yes. The white-haired and burly old man nodded, and Shen said, Master Zushin's seal is about to be lifted. For a maximum of 1 minute, Master Shushin can completely unlock the seal. It is when we break into the divine universe. The envoy came this time to prepare you 1 or 2 to explain clearly the aftermath of refining the deities, and then follow the envoy to enter the void forbidden area, waiting for the Lord Shushin to send. Is this battle finally coming? The Lord of the Refining God murmured to himself, and a light flashed in his eyes. After taking a deep breath, the Lord of the Refining Gods arched back and said, Sergeant, this seat understands. Okay. The white-haired and burly old man nodded with satisfaction, and said, 8 wastes. The ambassador will stay here for 1 or 2. You will now explain the aftermath. It is good. The Lord of the Refining God nodded, then walked out of the hall. His face flashed with hesitation. It seems that it is time to really decide that the next master to choose after he leaves. After a second or 2 of groaning, a decisive flash of light appeared in the eyes of the master of the Refining God, and a deep voice opened. His voice was like a thunderous thunder, which blew directly above the Lian Shinzong, and passed into the ears of every disciple of the Lian Shinzong. I have a sense of heaven, and soon after this suzerain, he will leave the refining deities to explore the true meaning of the avenue. Therefore, the suzerain decided to make his disciple Wu Shuang take the role of temporary suzeraintor and monitor the movement of the entire Suzi. The 5 elders and elders jointly assisted. If Wu Shuang violates the interests of the suzerain, or the leader has no responsibility, he shall be jointly dismissed. If the suzerain hasn't returned for a long time, Wu Shuangli will do his best to manage it, but he will live up to the suzerain's trust. But he will truly accept the unification and change to the position of the suzerain. Disciple Xian Shuang, head to the sovereign hall to hear the seal. As soon as this remark came to an end, the same stone suddenly stirred up 1,000 layers of waves, and the whole audience fell into a short silence, and then it was boiling. What? Jian Wushuang is about to take over from the next master? Is it? So fast. Master Sovereign is leaving? Duan't I have to wait for Wushuang to wait? All of a sudden, countless disciples were stunned and shocked. And the elder Feng, who was condensing the corpse of the god, even heard 3 words of good, and his eyes filled with laughter. Miss Shuang, My husband congratulates you. In one of the halls, Elder Banshan, who was practicing cross-legged, walked out of the hall slowly, looking at a boiling refining god, with a strange face on his face. This boy, is he going to be the Lord? He murmured and shook his head. After sneaking into the enemy sect, he became the enemy's head directly, which is really rare. He had some expectations. After Wu Shuang assumed the post of supremacy, to what extent would Lian Shenzong lead? 7 dead caves in Shurian Mountain. Here are the chief disciples, such as Angry Bear, Bone Wing, and Zheng Heng, whose complexions are extremely complicated. At the beginning, Jian Wushuang was just a newcomer in their eyes. But in just 10 years, this misty pair not only killed Yen Dan and broke the mark. Now he must serve as the next sovereign of the refining god sect, directly reaching they can't look beyond their reach. It really sighs. I knew this guy, not an underground bug, but a heavenly dragon. The angry bear who once fought with Jian Wushuang once shook his head and said with emotion, when he was defeated by Jian Wushuang in the first move, he knew that Jian Wushuang was by no means a thing in the pool. Now at first glance it really met his guess. Shurian Mountain hillside location. A red jerks that appeared enchanting in red, leaned on the door of the corpse hole with fragrant shoulders. The growth speed of this man made her feel a little distorted. I'm afraid the next time I meet again, it's not the Master Wu Shuang, but the Lord Sovereign. Suddenly, no matter the disciples or elders in the refining Shenzong, they looked up and looked at the sky with a wonderful expression. All in all, when the refining suzerain's words fell, the whole refining Suzime burst. Shurian Mountain Peak, I'm going to be the master now. Jian Wushuang touched his nose, let alone the others were stunned, and even he himself felt a bit confused. He had speculated that the sovereign would pass the position of the sovereign to him. But he did not expect that all this would come so quickly. Shaking his head, Jian Wushuang didn't think too much. Chapter 45:16. Hey! The white-haired burly old man and Jian Wushuang's eyes collided in the air. Jian Wushuang only felt that the 2 thunder shots were normal in his eyes. He couldn't help shrinking his pupils and stepped back slightly. When Jian Wushuang opened his eyes to look at the man, there was already a dignity on his face. The white-haired and burly old man in front of him is also a 6-marked vanity. And when it comes to strength, I am afraid that he is stronger than the master of refining God. What? The surprise of the white-haired and burly old man was even more serious. He was a virtual man specializing in Lei Fa. Lei had already penetrated the body. Although he did not motivate the virtual force just now, his own coercion was violent. Even if it is seen by 3 marks, it can't bear it. But this person is just a slight step back. It seems that the new suzerain that Ba Huang is looking for is not a simple character. The white-haired burly man shook his head, but didn't think deeply. Miss Shuang, this is the Supreme Master. The Lord of the Refining Gods spoke. Sir Lord. Jian Wushuang heard the words toward the white-haired and burly old man and nodded his head, and then looked at the Lord of the Refining God again and said, Master Sovereign. Well, Wu Shuang, now you are also going to take over this suzerain and become the refining Suzetsu, and this suzerain has something to say. Refining the prince's head slightly, thinking about it, Shenin said, Miss Shuang, this time the Supreme Master came to refine the sect. This is to take this sovereign to a place where the danger is extremely high, and whether this sovereign can return safely, it is also unknown. We can't slay the sacred sect without a headless day. Therefore, this suzerain has decided to convey to you the suzerain's position, so that you can temporarily assume the suzerain's position to perform the post of suzerain. May you? The disciples will never die, and they will do their best to protect Shenzong. Jianwu stepped forward in both directions, said Shensheng. It is good. After hearing this, the Lord of the Refining God couldn't help flashing satisfaction. And then he said, Miss Shuang, before you came, the Lord had summoned the 5 elders and asked them to assist you together. These 5 elders, the elders are the real pillars of our refining Shenzong. Among them, such as Elder Banshan, they are longer than the reigning masters. They want to stay in the refining of the religious God for a long time. I want you to have 5 of them to help you. Yes, so you do and need to worry too much. After a pause, the Lord of the Refining God continued. In the past, the change of the position of the Supreme Master of the sect of the religious sect always declared the universe, and let Wuxiao come to congratulate me. This time I took a rush, and I was afraid that I didn't have time to be too solemn. But when I practiced the sect of Sutra, I couldn't perfunctory things at will, and I lost face. Later, the sovereign will send corpses, and send them to each of the major schools, to invite those who come to the banquet. Witness your ascension ceremony. But there is a place where you need to go for a trip in person, and show your sincerity. Where? Lord Sovereign, but it doesn't matter. Jian Wushuang said. The Hades. The Sovereign Lord spit out 3 words. The Hades. Jian Wushuang fainted for a moment. He had come to this virtual universe for so long, and he knew more or less about the division of power in the virtual universe. This Enian Palace is also one of the top forces in the virtual universe, the immortal Taoism, but it has not seemed to have a good relationship with the refining gods. How could he make him a person who would soon become the suzerain and send the invitation in person? It seems that he saw the doubt of Jian Wushuang, and the master of the refining said with a bitter smile, Wushuang, you don't know. This Hades palace is actually one with our refining Shinzong. It was the corpse of the ancestor of the reigning Shinzong, who gained spiritual wisdom, and then opened the gate on his own. We refining Shinzong pay attention to the technique of corpse refining, and this Hades is practicing as a corpse. Over the past few years, due to the problems of our philosophy, we have been making a lot of unhappiness in refining Shinzong and Hades. However, when we practice the ancestral teachings of Shinzong, we must go to the other person's gate in person, whenever there is a change of suzerain, and invite them to come and see and sign a covenant. The same is true of the Hades, but I am afraid that they will have a new master in charge, and will come to us to practice the Shinzong. After the refining God sovereign said, Jian Wushuang nodded unawarely and replied, The disciple knows, that disciple will leave today. For Jian Wushuang, this is just a process to go. There is nothing troublesome. Naturally it is indispensable. Well, this Lord will arrange a disciple to accompany you, and you will set off tomorrow morning. The sovereign Lord said. Immediately, the refining suzerain explained a few more things that he was responsible for after he became suzerain, and let Jian Wushuang leave. The white-haired burly old man didn't say a word from beginning to end, but listened silently, and after Jian Wushuang left, he said something meaningful to the refining monarch. 8 shortages. I don't think this person's emotions are good, and his tone is not low or high, but am afraid that he is a meticulous and profound mansion. The Lord of the refining heard a word, and did not understand what the white-haired burly old man said. The white-haired burly old man just shook his head and said nothing more. The next morning, after Jian Wushuang had cleaned up, he planned to leave the Lianshinzong and head to the Hades. Separated far away, Jian Wushuang saw a woman in a red dress, and a tall figure standing next to the mountain gate and waiting. 9 Musk. Jian Wushuang stepped closer and raised an eyebrow. The follower disciples that the Lord God of Molding said was her? Mist double. The suzerain sent me to take care of you this time, and take care of you along the way. And the suzerain said that he will let me be your next to you and be called by you. 9 Musk lowered his head. Some did not dare to look at the sword unparalleled, sounded like a mosquito. Since that day in the sovereign's hall, the two have lost contact with each other. In the heart of Jioshan, the seemingly kind and gentle, but arrogant Master Wushuang, has some more unclear words. Fear. That's right, it's fear. Until novel. Let's go. Sword Wushuang nodded his head, and released the bone bird granted to him by the Lord of Refining God. He stepped out and landed on the back of the bone bird. Chapter 45:17. The giant bone bird is 100 feet wide, and if its wings hang from the sky, every time it is fanned, it tears the void and explodes. The strong wind that it set off directly turned into several thick buckets of tornadoes, like turning the surroundings into a sea of anger and rolling away. Nine Musk was blown a little by this fierce and powerful wind, and his face was pale. Sword saw Wu Shuang frowned, waved a virtual force, turned into a mask, to resist the violent wind for Jioshan. Thanks, thanks. Nine Musk glanced at Jian Wushuang gratefully, then lowered her head and gasped slightly. Anyway, Jian Wushuang nodded his head, and then did not answer any more, but sat down on his knees and practiced silently. The strong wind kept blowing Jian Wushuang's hair. Jiumu stood behind Jian Wushuang, and silently looked at Jian Wushuang's back. He tried to say something, but before he could say anything, he was swallowed again. Until hesitated for a long time, she said softly, "Miss Shuang, what happened that day?" "Sorry, I didn't think so much at that time. I was too selfish to take care of your feelings." Jian Wushuang, who was sitting in front of him, had no expression on Wen Yan's face. His eyes were always closed, but a sigh was made in his mouth. He sword warriors acted in his life, and he will always report. "You bully me, and I return you 10 feet. But after all, he was never a narrow-minded man with a small belly. Naturally, he couldn't hold his breath with a small musk deer. He didn't want to deal with Nine Musk for one reason. After all, he is not a person of the void universe. Fundamentally, he is destined that his sword Wushuang future will stand opposite these 9 musk deer. Therefore, no matter whether it is the 9 musk deer, or the elder wind elder who is not thin, he does not want to involve too many causes and effects." It wasn't until a long time before Jiao Shifang heard Jian Wushuang's bland words. "Anyway, the matter of that day, Wu is not attentive, and you don't need to worry about it." Hearing this, Jiumu could not help but tremble at the apex of his heart. "It is good." Her voice is higher than that. Subsequently, the two did not speak again. A few days later, a dark blue star field has arrived. In the middle of the star field, a mountain gate is like a monster's beak. "Miss Double, the underworld has arrived." Nine Musk softly spoke. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes and stood up. Before reaching the Yining Palace completely, a thick body of corpse slammed into the nose, which is much thicker than the refining Shinzong. "This is the Hades." Jian Wushuang nodded secretly in his heart. "Let's go." Swordless steps, stepping from the skeletal bird, put the skeletal bird away. Jusi followed respectfully behind Jian Wushuang. Walking to the entrance of the gate of the Yining Palace, the disciples of the Yining Palace who were responsible for guarding the gate of the Yining Palace had sharp eyes. And at one glance they saw the sword Wushuang and Jioshan, who jumped down from the giant bone bird. "Come here is Wu Shuang, the next sovereign of Lianshanzong?" The apprentice of the Yin temple greeted him quickly, and said with a smirk, "It seems to be the lord of the refining god," and has already greeted him. "Yes, it's me." Jian Wushuang nodded. "Aha, Lord Gongzhu ordered me to wait here for a long time. Please go here." Immediately, the disciple of the Hades Palace hurriedly welcomed Jian Wushuang in. Although in recent years, there is some disagreement between the Hades and the Lianshanzong, because of the differences in ideas, but the two main gates are the same route. Close ally. Jian Wushuang is the next suzerain, and to the disciple of the Hades that said, "It is a high-profile man who cannot help but be disrespectful." When I walked into the Hades, I was quite alive. I saw a lot of Hades disciples along the way. All of them were exuding a slight halo. At first glance, I was more able to exercise my body refined as an indestructible corpse of all things. After a while, under the leadership of this disciple, the three quickly came to a palace with a sloping roof. The disciple of the Yining Palace said, "Hister Lord Shuang, wait a minute or two here. Lord Gongzhu is approaching the first genius of our virtual universe, the contemporary Tianyao Xintian in Tianyao Holy Land. Later, Lord Palace will welcome you." As soon as the words fell, Jian Wushuang had not spoken yet, but the 9 Musk standing behind him could not help but frown. Theoretically speaking, Jian Wushuang is the next sovereign of the Lianshanzong, so in terms of identity, at least he must be equal to the palace master of the Hades. How can there be sword Wushuang waiting outside this door? However, she didn't say anything when she saw Jian Wushuang. She naturally wouldn't go and speak. "It is good." Jian Wushuang nodded his head, and said lightly, "Thank you, please go in and let me know. Let the Lord hurry up. The Enian Palace disciple smiled. Inside the hall, two people sat cross-legged across a coffee table. The man on the left is a young man, full of brilliance, handsome features, and a white coat that wins blood. At first glance, he can't help but praise the words, "The world is like a jade, and the sun is unique. In the universe, there is a clear stream." The person on the right was covered with white gauze, and only one eye on the right was exposed. The whole person was dead, but his breath was extremely powerful. Master Gongju, the next sovereign lord of the refining god sect, has come. The Enian Palace disciple, who had previously answered Jian Wushuang, walked quickly to the one-eyed man and leaned down and said softly in his ear, "Oh, it came quite quickly, let him wait outside and grind his temper first." The one-eyed man raised a brow lightly and then said lightly, "Disciple, understand." The apprentice of the Enian Palace hurriedly resigned, closing the door. "The lord of the underworld, but the next sovereign of the refining Shinzong is here?" The young man sitting opposite the lord of the Hades asked with a smile. "That's right, it's just a baby doll that doesn't dry out, so don't bother." The lord of the Hades Palace nodded his head, stretched out his arms, poured a cup of spiritual tea for the young man in front of him, and said with a smile, "Come, nephew Tian Yaoxian, let's continue to talk to us. The owner of the palace remembers to see you last time. You just broke through the mark, and it didn't take long before you met again this time. And you have already reached the mark. Such a talent really makes the owner of this palace feel ashamed. The first day of the virtual universe is proud, and it really is a real name." Time passes slowly. Outside the main hall, Jian Wushuang stood with his hands on his back, his face expressionless. It's 9 Musk, with a bit of dissatisfaction on his face, and whispered, "Miss Shuang, the lord of the Hades Palace is so slow. I'm afraid that I want to take the opportunity to give you a power first. Let's cut it fast. Chaos, turn passive into active, go straight in?" Jian Wushuang smiled and replied faintly, "This person is not polite. What is lost is his face, and he will only look small, and we must not be polite." "I see." Juicy nodded, seemingly incomprehensible. 2 more hours passed, and then the disciple of the Yin Palace who was responsible for answering Jian Wushuang had just rushed over and said with a smile, "Sir, wait long, please." Chapter 45:18. Crunch. The gate of the hall of the Hades Palace was pushed from the inside out. A handsome-looking young man in white clothes winds the snow, holding a folding fan, and walking out of the hall with 2 respectful servants. He first glanced at Jian Wushuang, shook his head lightly, and immediately fell on Jiu Muzi behind Jian Wushuang. His eyes suddenly flashed. A flash of stunning color flashed. He narrowed his eyes, as if something was moving in his heart, but he didn't say anything, but passed by the side of Jiushan and Jian Wushuang. Lord Tianyao walked slowly. The Enian Palace disciple respectfully saw off the young man, then looked at Jian Wushuang, reached out and made a pose in the inside, said with a smile, "Lord Miss Shuang, go, Lord Gongju is waiting for you." Jian Wushuang nodded his head and walked in. As soon as Jissi was about to keep up, he saw the apprentice of the Yin Palace step out, stopped her and said, "This girl stops. My house owner only let the fog His Excellency went in alone. But he didn't tell the younger, but let others in too." Wu Jiumu heard. She could not help but frown. She didn't want to stop here, for some reason. Just now that the glorious sun Yao Yao looked at her that day made her feel uneasy. And that look she had seen on Yin Don's face. "No matter. 9 Musk, you are here waiting for me. No one can hurt you with me here." Jian Wushuang glanced at Jiushan, and said lightly, stepped out and entered the hall. When the Jiozi heard the words of Jian Wushuang, she felt relieved in her heart, and stopped saying anything. Creak. The wooden door of the hall was closed again. Jian Wushuang held his head high. Yu Shulin stood, and went in 1 step. The room was slightly dim, and an elder man covered with gray bandages, showing only one eye in his right eye, sat cross-legged in front of a coffee table. "This person is the palace master of the Hades. Miss Double, right? Come sit." He stretched out his hand toward the opposite side of the coffee table, motioning Jian Wushuang to sit down. It is good. Wu Jianwushuang nodded his head and sat opposite the main director of the palace. Miss Shuang, the approximate thing. The guy in the Badlands has summoned the owner of the palace and said that you are the next master of the refining deities. The main theme of the Hades Palace is flat. He reached out and poured a cup of tea for Jian Wushuang and continued to say, "We have told Hades about the situation of the Hades and the Lian Shinzong. Although we have some hatred recently, we still haven't as far as old death is concerned. After all, we have the same roots and ancestors. We were once the closest people. So, at the beginning of the feast, the lord of this palace will go to you to practice the sect of God personally to witness your ceremony." It is good. Jian Wushuang didn't say much, reached out and raised his teacup to take a sip. The two chatted a few words casually, and the lord of the Hades palace waved his hand and made a weary path. "Well, Wushuang, the lord of the palace knows that you are now on the throne, and you are busy with business, so I will not leave you much. Later, when this lord arrives at your refining deities, then he will gather with you carefully." Hearing this, Jian Wushuang still didn't know where. The owner of the Hades palace was about to rush off. "Have a good rest, then go ahead." After saying this, Jian Wushuang lowered the teacup, got up and stood up, and walked towards the door. Yingong Palace Lord, looking at the back of Jian Wushuang leaving, a cold hum in his nose, shook his head disdainfully. He pushed open the wooden door and walked out of the dark room, but Jian Wushuang's brow frowned. 9 months gone. Master Wushuang, your maid, was invited by the Lord Tianyao to go to the God Wine Pavilion. The Mingyin disciple who was outside walked over and said, "Son of Heaven's Yao, have you been to God's wine house?" Wu Jianshuang heard the words and couldn't help frowning again. Who is Lu Jimu? He thinks he knows a little bit about it. He is the personal maid who the Lord sect of God has personally ordered to give him. It is impossible for him to suddenly follow someone halfway. And this son of heaven Yao, he also heard that it is the recognized first genius of the virtual universe. The practice is not yet a virtual age, but has already reached the level of 3 marks, and the background is the most from the virtual universe. Tianyao Holy Land, one of the strong Taoism, can be described as a collection of heaven and earth, and the atmosphere is transported in one body. Let's talk about its status in the virtual universe, even more so than Jian Wushuang in the divine universe, or even worse. Take me to. Jian Wushuang frowned and said, "Yes." Seeing the coldness in Jian Wushuang's eyes, the disciple of the Yinyin Palace jumped a brow, and quickly took Jian Wushuang towards the God Wine Pavilion. For him, the heavenly sun is a dragon-like figure on that day, and Jian Wushuang is also a behemoth he can't afford to provoke. He was just along the way, but he couldn't help but hint at Jian Wushuang. "It's probably that the son of heaven Yao fancy your maid. You quickly become a good friend, and give your servant to the son of heaven Yao. You can just become a good relationship with the son of heaven Yao." With these words, although the disciples of the Yinyin Palace did not understand so clearly, they generally had such a meaning. He didn't notice that Jian Wushuang's brow was getting colder and colder. A moment later, under the leadership of this Yinyin disciple, he turned left and right, and Shinjiu Pavilion arrived. Shinjiu Pavilion is an entertainment place built by the Hades Palace. It contains the top variety of wines in the virtual universe. Often, the disciples of the Hades Palace will ask about 3 or 5 friends to go to this god house. Just relax. Cultivation practice. The individual is next to the practice word. He entered Shinjiu Pavilion, and this disciple of the Yinyin Palace went straight to a box on the 2nd floor with Jian Wushuang. Opening the door of the box lightly, Jian Wushuang stepped in. There were 3 people at a wine table. Sacred son of Tianyao, Jioshan, Yinshan, who is the first disciple of the Yinyin Palace, and 2 old slaves who stood behind Tianyao. www.novel.com. Seeing Sword Wushuang coming in, Jiumiu's eyes flashed a distress for help, while Tianyao Shengzi slowly opened a smile. "Have you been the new sovereign Lord Wushuang?" Tong Tianyao Shengzi smiled rather than laughed. Qi Jianwushuang's expression was indifferent, nodded his head and said, "It's me." Sheng Tianyao smiled brightly and stretched out his hand, Come and come sit Misty, drink a few drinks together. After Yin Wushuang sat down, Yin Shan, the first apprentice of the Yin Palace next to the Son of Heaven, was responsible for pouring him a glass of wine. Mr. Tianyao raised his glass, raised his sword to Wushuang, and narrowed his eyes and smiled. Miss Shuang, this is your maid called Jiushin, right? Ben Xing told her to drink a few glasses of wine. You should not mind, right? Qi Jian Wushuang looked at him lightly, without a reply. The disregard of Wu Jian's unparalleled, cannot help but let Tianyao Xingzi hold up his glass. Alas, instead of getting angry he continued. Come on, everyone toast together. The words fell, and Yin Shan, who was in charge of a company, took a quick sip. Juicy looked at Jian Wushuang, and when she was about to speak, Jian Wushuang gave her a slightly restless look. Immediately, Jian Wushuang drank this glass of wine as well. He put down his glass, and Jian Wushuang silently looked at the first day of this famous universe, Tianyao Xingzi. He would like to see what trick this person is going to play. Chapter 45:19. Inside the number 1 box of the Tianji of the God Wine Pavilion, everyone toasted and drank together, but under the seemingly harmonious picture, they couldn't hide a trace of coldness. That's right. Tianyao Xingzi looked at Jian Wushuang and Jiu Mu, both drinking a glass of wine. A smile appeared on his face. Everyone in the world says that I am an immortal, but the radical next to the immortal is the first person. This son of sun is a candid, uninhibited man who loves rivers and mountains' beauties alone, and a glass of fine wine. This time, the son of sun first said clearly, no one can run the virtual force to melt this drink and force it out. We must accompany Ben Xingzi to get drunk for 3,600 games. How? As soon as this remark was finished, Yin Shan, the chief disciple of the Yin Palace who was in charge of companionship, quickly echoed. Master Sheng is right. This time, Lord Sun has finally come to our palace, and we must accompany you to drink. Okay, you kid, you're on the right track. Tianyao Xingzi stretched out his hand, and smiled and touched the top of the Yin mountain, as if he was petting the puppies who sold his goodies, and then stretched out the glass again and raised it to Jiu Mu. Come on, 9 Musk, and have a drink with Ben Xingzi. Jiushi heard that she was already crimson and blushing, and flashed a moment of hesitation. This divine wine is made from 100 brewed fragrant fruits, which is specially used for drinking of trace-level virtuosos. However, she is a star-rated virtuoso, and she has already been a little bit alcoholic. He wanted to refuse, but when Jiushu saw a seeming smile, in fact his eyes were bleak and dazzling. She had figured out the identity of the young man in front of her. The Holy Son of Tianyao Holy Land, the Holy Son of Tianyao. The first day of the universe that swept the world is proud. Tianyao Holy Land is one of the strongest immortal dharmas in the void universe. There are more than 16 marked virtual lords in the Holy Land. Although refining God is also one of the top forces, it is worse than Tianyao Holy Land not a little bit. This is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that now the refining suzerain is about to step down, and Jian Wushuang will become the new suzerain. Once she offended Tianyao, it was tantamount to offending Tianyao. At that time, not to mention how the Tianyao Holy Land might dominate the sect of sex, I am afraid that a sentence will be released in the universe. Gurus, thinking of this, the 9 Musk silver teeth bite and raised the glass to drink. Suddenly, a flame seemed to burn in her body. Jiushin only felt that the blood in her body was boiling, her head was dizzy, and she was extremely uncomfortable. That's right. Tianyao Xingzi smiled with satisfaction and raised his glass again. Unexpectedly, the girl of 9 Musk has a low profile, and the amount of alcohol is really good. Come, give Ben Xingzi a face and another glass. Seeing this, Jiushin finally couldn't help it. His face changed slightly, but there was still a strong smile on Qiao's face, and he said, Master, I can't really drink. Can't drink. After hearing this, Mr. Tianyao's eyes narrowed slowly. The smile on his face converged, and his voice became cold. 9 Musk girls, it seems that you don't give this face to Ben Xingzi? 9 Musk heard a smile on her face. Sir, I don't mean this. As soon as she was about to explain well, Tianyao interrupted her explanation and continued to say, 9 Musk girls, even if you do and think about yourself, you have to think about the gate behind you. Think about your master, Wu Shuang. Hearing this, Jiu Shijiao trembled. This naked threat has become apparent. 9 Musk glanced at the expressionless, silent swordsman beside him, and couldn't help but utter a grin in his heart. From the beginning to the end, no matter whether she is refining Shinzong or outside, she is in the hands of a great man. I drink. Quivering and reaching out his hand, Jiushu took his glass and prepared to drink it. Seeing this, Tianyao Shengzi brought a mild smile on his face again, nodded with satisfaction, and Yinshan, who was next to him, also had an unpleasant smile on his face. What Tianyao Shengzi was going to do, of course, he knew very well. Snapped. At this time, 9 Musk, holding a wine glass, preparing to drink a right hand, was grabbed by a big hand with a strong force from the big bones of the big hands, so that she could not move at all. Jimu looked up dully, only to see Jian Wushuang's sharp-edged side face, indifferent and indifferent. Next moment, a cold, low voice came from Jian Wushuang's mouth. Your face. You rubbish, I hit 10 with one hand, and you also deserve to be faced on a certain side of the fog. As soon as this remark was made, the audience was shocked. The companion Yinshan had a shocking expression on his face. He didn't expect that this Wu Shuang from the refining Shinzong was so presumptuous. Does he know who is the Son of Heaven, who is sitting in front of him? Bold. Immediately, as soon as he slammed the table, he wanted to teach Tianyao Shengzi the lesson in front of him. However, before he could act, Jian Wushuang's eyes rose sharply by 3 inches and he looked at him. Boom! Instantly, Yinshan just felt a big horror between him and his life. Jian Wushuang's cold eyes looked like 2 magical swords that split the sky and shattered the endless sky, and shot into him, kill him thousands of times. Alas! Yinshan fell to the ground with a buttock, and a chill rushed from the back to the top of his head, like a falling ice cellar. On another look, his entire back was wet with cold sweat. And Tianyao Shengzi, with a smile on his face, the smile hardened. Immediately, Tianyao Shengzi's face was gloomy to the extreme. Miss Shuang, even your sovereign lord refining, did not dare to talk to this son. Are you trying to die? Knelt down and apologize and donate this maid to Ben Shengzi. Ben Shengzi can treat you as just now. After speaking, the Son of Heaven, Yao Yao, got up and stood up, looking down at the sword unparalleled. However, he had just stood up and had not stood upright. I kneel. Jian Wushuang sneered. The chaotic domineering body urged. His right hand suddenly stretched out and re-patted on the head of Tianyao Shengzi. Kneel down. Boom! Endless power erupted from the palms of swordless pairs. Tianyao Shengzi only felt like a million mountains came down, and the whole person fell to the ground fiercely, kneeling directly on the floor with a spider-like crack. For today's Jian Wushuang, as long as he does not enter the invincible supreme, no one is his enemy. On this day the Holy Sun, but 3 marks, is worse than Luo Ming, his big head of the Red Whale Gang. Dare to pray in front of him? Little Lord. Master Santa. The 2 old slaves guarding the door of the box suddenly became furious when they saw this. As soon as they were about to kill Jian Wushuang, they saw Jian Wushuang's voice indifferent. Taro. Click. A void crack split from the back of Jian Wu's body, and the Taro corpse shrouded in a wide black robe stepped forward, stretched out his hands, and blasted towards the 2 old slaves. Chapter 45:20 Boom! The corpse of Tai Luo's corpse blasted out, and the endless power burst out suddenly. Dawen circulated in his hands, turning into a violent sword spirit, and slammed on the chests of the 2 old slaves. These 2 slave servants of Tianyao Shengzi, but first entered the realm of traces. How could they be the opponent of Tai Luo's corpse? The dead bones of the tiger are still there. Even if the Taro Supreme Divine Corpse today is only just entering the supreme realm. But how can they compete with it? Puff! Suddenly, the 2 old slaves were hit by 2 space battleships. Their bodies suddenly smashed through the gate of Shinjij and flew out fiercely. Call out! The two little black dots flickered in the air, but these two old slaves directly punched the two corpses of Taro God's corpse, blasting out of the Hades, and even the entire Hades area. Suddenly the Enin, who was paralyzed in the ground, looked at the scene, stunned and trembling. What did he see? Tianyao Xingzi was slapped into the head by the fog, kneeling stiffly. Tianyao Xingzi's two old servants were smashed by Wushan's corpse and smashed out of the Enin star field. Is this too violent? Immediately afterwards, the Enin first disciple hit the spirit. Event. Something big is coming. Miss Shuang, you are looking for death. The head of the sword was held by Jian Wushuang, and Tianyao Xingzi, who was kneeling down on the ground, twisted his extreme features to the extreme, and under the roar, he spurred all the imaginary forces in his body. Suddenly, the imaginary force in the heavenly sun's body resembles a whirlpool rotating at high speed, and a force sufficient to destroy the stars bursts out from his body, like a tide, rolling in, and the sword is unparalleled. Death's right hand on his head smashed open. Oh! Feeling the impact force from his hand, Jian Wushuang couldn't help but brow slightly. As the first day of the emptiness of the universe, the Prince of Yao Yao is proud of this skill. This force of impact is no less weak than the four-marked vagrants in terms of might. If Jian Wushuang hasn't broken the middle extreme, maybe he has to sit on the wax at this moment. But unfortunately, you are far from enough. With a cold hum, Jian Wushuang's right hand was full of blue tendons. He grabbed the head of Tianyao Xingzi and slammed it severely. He actually smashed the body of Tianyao Xingzi directly and threw it out of the wine hall. Seeing this scene, Jiushin couldn't help feeling a little sorrowful. Miss Shuang, after all, this person is the son of Tianyao Holy Land. If we do this, we won't cause you any trouble? Anyway, Jian Wushuang shook his head and stepped out, already appearing outside of the God Wine Pavilion, overlooking Tianyao Xingzi, who was smashed to the ground by him. The turmoil in the fighting between the two people immediately caught the attention of all the Yin Palace disciples inside and outside the Shinjiu Pavilion. What? The son of Tianyao was thrown out? Who is so bold? How dare you do something to Tianyao Xingzi? For a moment, everyone was dismayed. Immediately, they saw a step out of the God Wine Pavilion, stepping in the void, expressionless swordless pair. It's him. New sovereign of the reincarnation? I remember that this person didn't break through the mark shortly before. How did he smash Tianyao Xingzi out? Who knows this? I guess it is a sneak attack. After all, Tianyao Xingzi is the first day in our universe. He is invincible in the same realm. What's wrong with this fog? It should not be Tianyao Xingzi's opponent. Everyone said one after another. Missed double despicable maggot you it. In the Lord's wine, the expression of the holy son of Tianyao has been distorted to the extreme. The surging killing intentions almost condensed into substance and circulated in his eyes. He was born proud, no matter his family background, or his invincible luck, and his ancient talents. He has developed a high-mindedness and does not put anyone in his eyes. When has he been so humiliated? A series of hatreds continued to wash in his body, and in a short moment, the eyes of Xingya became flushed and anxious to destroy the sword unparalleled corpse. With a low roar, Tianyao Xingzi was full of light and killed toward the sword Wushuang. Jian Wushuang saw this. His expression was indifferent, and he calmly said, Miss said, hit you with one hand, hit you with one hand. Next moment, I saw Jian Wushuang's left hand behind him, his right hand condensed into a fist, and smashed towards the heavenly sun. This fist can break the stars and the sun, and the mountains and rivers fall. Countless golden lights radiate from Jian Wushuang's right fist, as if pushing a round of rolling sun, like a golden carriage, driving out from the center of the sun, and ramming towards the sun of Tianyao. Click click. Under this punch, the whole void exudes the sound of a broken mirror, causing ripples. Rewind. Suddenly, many disciples of the Hades Palace who were watching the bustling life collapsed and flew directly to the cosmic starry sky. Boom! This punch was finally banged on the smashed Tianyao Xingzi. Moment. Tianyao Xingzi flew out at a faster speed than when he rushed, and the whole earth shook. But soon, in the sky of the Hades, a dark yellow mask appeared faintly, releasing the power of restraint and compressing the aftermath of the battle between the two as much as possible. Otherwise, with the sword Wushuang's fist, it is enough to blast the sun, and I am afraid that the aftermath of the scatter will be enough to disintegrate the entire Yin Palace. What? Miss Shuang, you should kill. Tianyao Xingzi climbed from the ground. Junling's face was already full of twisted madness. His eyes turned into a bloodthirsty red. He killed the sword again. Stubbornness. Sword Wushuang shook his head, stepped out in one step, and suddenly appeared as if moving instantly, in front of Tianyao Xingzi. His right fist pounded out like a mad dragon, turning the surrounding 10 feet of land into a sea of tornadoes. Ha! The lines of the sword Wushuang's right fist flowed, and the sound of trembling on the road was emitted, like a giant axe that broke the ground and lay across the head of Tianyao Xingzi. Mr. Tianyao, right? Wu teach you how to be a man today. Inside the main hall of the Hades, the lord of the Yin Palace, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly jumped. Huh? What happened? Open your eyes slowly. The master of the Yin Palace looks up. Flip-flop. At that moment, a disciple of the Hades Palace hurriedly walked in with a complex expression. Master Gongzhu, the event is not good. Refining Shenzong's next ruler, Wu Shuang, fights with Tianyao Xingzi outside Xinjiu Pavilion. What? The main pupil of the Hades Palace shrunk slightly, and then the eyes moved quickly, and his gaze passed directly through the 9 nether void, and saw the scene where Jian Wushuang burst into the heavenly sun. Jack! Suddenly, the host of the Hades Palace had a pale face and a slight movement of his shoulders, and the whole person had disappeared into the hall. Chapter 45-21. God Wine Court. Outside, the sky was full of smoke. It is enough to destroy the galaxy and crush the stars, like a violent monster roaring in the roar, but has not waited for it to spread out. But it was stopped by the formation method in the Hades. Mist and mist, the iniquity of heaven is unforgivable, and the iniquity of man cannot live. You are looking for death. Tianyao Xingzi trembled and stood up from the ground. At this moment his hair was loose, his nose and eyes were bleeding, and where he was half a minute ago, he looked like a saintly son. Instead, he was like a murderer who had been forced to death. However, his appearance was embarrassing, a magnificent and horrible, indescribable Xeon power, but it began to condense on him. A plume of smoke and thick red light began to condense in his chest, and its overflowing breath directly wiped out the surrounding starry sky and turned into a chaos. When the disciples in the Yin Palace who watched the battle saw this, they felt a chill in their hearts. No, it's false. Mr. Tianyao has lost his mind and is desperate. Block. What do you want to block? Hurry up and sue the palace master. Only the master palace master can solve all this. Suddenly, the crowd watching the scene outside the Divine Wine Pavilion was panic-stricken. Is it false? Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He has been in the Void Universe for some time. In his opinion, most of the Void Universe are almost the same as the Divine Universe. There is not much difference. The only thing worth mentioning is that every vicar in the Void Universe, while some accompanying magical powers are exploding. The virtual explosion can instantly explode one's body up to 100 times the strength of the whole body. It is the virtual man of the virtual universe, the biggest killing move. Sorry, I do too. Click. Next moment, Jian Wushuang raised his arm, spread his 5 fingers, and moved in the direction of Tianyao Xingzi. In his palm, the air machine began to rotate. Just like a gyroscope, the speed of rotation was getting faster and faster. Boom! Finally, a small black vortex like a black hole emerged in the palm of the sword. The magical power of Jian Wushuang's whole body boiled up, and then he frantically gathered toward his palm, gradually forming a fist-sized black horror ball. Black burst. There is still black in the burst. The virtual explosion is divided into 7 grades. The lowest grade is white, the second grade is gold, and the third grade is purple. How many are black? How have you never heard of it? I don't know, but the power of compression in this black virtual explosion is terrible. It is even stronger than the Prince of Tianyao. The Prince of Tianyao is a 9-grade virtual explosion. Many disciples of the Hades Palace looked at this scene and said in amazement, "Is it black?" Jian Wu's eyes flickered. As early as when Jian Wushuang swallowed the nucleus of virtual power, given to him by the elder Banshan, he awakened the virtual explosion, but for the first time since awakening for so long. As for the power, Jian Wushuang's heart is quite looking forward. Go die! Just then Tianyao Xingzi broke out first. The crimson sphere on his chest, like a cannonball, shot fiercely at Jian Wushuang. Suddenly, the air was overflowing, the earth was cracking, and the mask over the Yining Palace was like a bowl with an inverted buckle. Click click, like a broken mirror. This guardian array that blocked all the mighty aftermaths made an unpleasant and broken sound. A trace of the air machine overflowed from the mask, shaking the whole Yining Palace violently, just when Jian Wushuang also planned to perform a virtual explosion. Stop! A sound rang out 100 miles away, and then, I saw a gurgling sound covered with bandages, stepping down, as if stepping out of ripples in the void, standing straight between Jian Wushuang and Tianyao Xingzi. Ha! A bandage burst, revealing dry pale gray palms. The master of the Yining Palace grabbed his right hand, and directly grasped the blast from the Son of Heaven Yao, destroying all the horrible orbs. Ha! As if marbles fell into the hands, the exploding orb of the heavenly Son of Heaven fell into the palm of the Lord of the Nether Palace. A rapid rotation, and sparks of countless sparks. However, the palm of the Lord of the Yining Palace was just like a 9-day pouring of molten iron. No matter how powerful this explosive ball was, it still couldn't hurt the slightest. Finally, the speed of rotation gradually slowed down, and was caught by the Lord of Yining. A breath of 6-marked virtual respect emanated from the main body of the Yining Palace. In this atmosphere, whether it is the Holy Son of Tianyao, or the Sword Unparalleled, it is as small as an ant. 6 marks, or Invincible Supreme, is too big and different from other ranks of Vicious Supreme. It is not an order of magnitude at all. Jian Wushuang saw this, and the light of the eye moved slightly, and regained the virtual explosive force that was ready to go. Master of the Hades, will you stop me for this kid? However, Tianyao Xingzi kept on, turning his eyes and staring at the Lord of the Yining Palace. Ugh! The Lord of the Yining Palace sighed lightly. He is the one who stands on the side of the universe. He has 6 marks of vanity, and naturally he doesn't need to care too much about the Son of Heaven. But Tianyao Xingzi represents not only himself, but also the behemoth of Tianyao Holy Land behind him. Tianyao Holy Land, one of the most powerful and immortal dharmas of the Void Universe, has a history that almost completely extinguishes the entire Void Universe. Even if the Refining God sect and the Hades are merged, it is estimated that it will not be the opponent of the Tianyao Holy Land. And Tianyao Xingzi has amazing potential in itself, and he will certainly be able to sit on an equal footing with him in the future. If not helpless, he was really reluctant to come out to intervene in this muddy water. But he didn't come out, just afraid that the whole Hades would have to be destroyed. Holy Son, give the Lord of the Palace a face. How has this matter been revealed? The Lord of the Yining Palace said to Tianyao Xingzi. Tianyao Xingzi did not speak, but his face became gloomy. Although he is arrogant, he is not stupid. He is indeed very talented. And behind it stands the giant behemoth of Tianyao Holy Land. Don't look at the Lord of the Hades, who is polite to himself, but the son of Tianyao knows that he does not have the ability and qualification to be a 6-mark vanity. Go wild before you. After the Lord of the Yining Palace finished speaking, he looked at Xiang Jianwushuang, and his face became a little blue. Miss Double Yao Huang, did that guy teach you to do things? Chapter 45-22 Kneel down. In the Divine Wine Pavilion Sky Room Number 1, everyone raised their cups and drank together. Under the seemingly harmonious scene, a trace of coldness could not be concealed. That's more like it. The Sky Glory Holy Sun looked at Jian Wushuang and Jiu Sha. They both drank the wine in their cups and smiled. The mortals in the world all say that we are immortals, but forget immortal, or are still human after all. I have an open personality all my life, uninhibited and wanton. I like the rivers, mountains, beauties, and wine in cups. This time, I'll make it clear that no one is allowed to use void energy to cleanse the alcohol, and we must drink it the natural way. You must accompany me to get drunk for 3,600 rounds. How about it? As soon as he said this, the head disciple of the Dark Yin Palace, Yin Shan, who was in charge of accompanying them, quickly added, "The Holy Sun is right. This time, Lord Holy Sun has finally come to our Dark Yin Palace. We will definitely drink to our heart's content with you." Good, good, good. You're quite smart, kid. The Sky Glory Holy Sun stretched out his hand and patted Yin Shan's head with a smile, as if he was petting a little dog wagging its tail. Then he raised his wine cup to Jiusha and said, "Come, Lady Jiusha, have another cup with me." Upon hearing this, a hint of hesitation flashed across Jiusha's already red face. This divine wine was made from the 100 brew fragrant fruit, and was specially made for Star-level Void Warriors to drink. She was only a Star-level Void Warrior, and had long been unable to hold her liquor. Jiusha wanted to refuse, but when she saw the Sky Glory Holy Sun's cold eyes, she was shaken. She had already figured out the identity of the young man in front of her. The current Holy Sun of the Sky Glory Holy Land, the Sky Glory Holy Sun. He was the #1 genius in the universe. The Sky Glory Holy Land was one of the strongest immortal orthodoxies in the Void universe. There was more than one 6-star Void Master in the Holy Land. Although the God Refining sect was also one of the top forces, it was still far inferior to the Sky Glory Holy Land. This was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that the God Refining sect master was about to step down, and Jian Wushuang would be the new sect master. If she offended the Sky Glory Holy Sun, it would be equivalent to offending the Sky Glory Holy Land. At that time, not to mention how the Sky Glory Holy Land would suppress the God Refining sect, even the God Refining sect, with Jian Wushuang as the sect master, would be unable to do anything if they spread the word in the universe. Gulp. Thinking of this, Jiusha gritted her teeth, raised her glass, and drank it in one go. Suddenly, a flame seemed to burn in her body. Jiusha felt her blood boiling and her head spinning. She felt extremely uncomfortable. That's the way. The Sky Glory Holy Sun smiled in satisfaction and raised his glass again. I didn't expect Miss Jiusha's alcohol tolerance to be so good despite her low cultivation. Come, give me some face and have another cup. Seeing this, Jiusha finally could not help it. Her expression changed slightly, but she still forced a smile on her pretty face and said in a nice voice, "Lord Holy Sun, I really can't drink anymore." "You can't drink it." Hearing this, the Sky Glory Holy Sun's eyes slowly narrowed. The smile on his face disappeared, and his voice became cold. "Lady Jiusha, it seems like you're not giving me any face?" Upon hearing this, the smile on Jiusha's face froze. "Lord Holy Sun, that's not what I meant." She was about to explain when the Sky Glory Holy Sun interrupted her and continued, "Miss Jiusha, even if you don't think for yourself, you should think for the sect behind you and for your sect master Wushuang, right?" Upon hearing this, Jiusha's body trembled. This undisguised threat was already obvious. Jiusha looked at the expressionless and silent Jian Wushuang, and could not help but laugh bitterly in his heart. From the beginning to the end, whether it was in the God Refining sect or outside, she was just a chess piece in the hands of the big shots. "I'll drink." Stretching out her trembling hand, Jiusha picked up the glass and was about to drink it. Seeing this, the Sky Glory Holy Sun's face once again had a warm smile as he nodded in satisfaction. Beside him, Yin Shan also had an evil smile on his face. He knew very well what the Sky Glory Holy Sun wanted to do. Pa. At this moment, Jiusha was holding a wine glass and was about to drink it when her right hand was grabbed by a large hand. A strong force came from this large hand, and she was unable to move. Jiusha raised her head in a daze, and only saw Jian Wushuang's angular face, which was cold and indifferent. The next moment, Jian Wushuang said in a cold and deep voice, "Your face. I can fight 10 trash like you with one hand. Do you think you're worthy of talking about face in front of me?" As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was shocked. Yin Shan's face was filled with shock. He did not expect that Wuxia from the God-refining sect would be so presumptuous. Did he know who the Sky Glory Holy Sun sitting in front of him was? How audacious! Yin Shan slammed the table and wanted to teach this ignorant thing a lesson on behalf of the Sky Glory Holy Sun. He wanted to take credit and show off. However, before he could do anything, Jian Wuxuang's divine light grew, and he looked at him. Whoosh! In an instant, Yin Shan felt a great horror of life and death coming at him. Jian Wuxuang's cold eyes were like two divine swords that could split the sky and earth and tear the endless sky apart. He felt like he was pierced and killed thousands of times. Thud! Yin Shan fell to the ground on his butt. A chill ran from his back to his head, making him feel like he had fallen into an ice cellar. When he looked again, his entire back was already drenched in a cold sweat. The smile on the Sky Glory Holy Sun's face froze, and his face slowly darkened. Wuxia, even your sect master doesn't dare to speak to me like this. Are you seeking death? Kneel down and apologize. Give your maidservant to me, and he'll take your words as frivolous and drunken words. I won't take it to heart. After saying that, the Sky Glory Holy Sun stood up and looked down at Jian Wuxia. However, just as he got up, his body was still not straight. I kneel. Jian Wuxuang sneered and activated his Chaos Overlord body. He suddenly stretched out his right hand and smacked the Sky Glory Holy Sun's head. You kneel. Rumble. Endless power burst out from Jian Wuxuang's palm. The Sky Glory Holy Sun felt as if a million mountains were pressing down on him. He knelt on the ground, and his knees left a web of cracks on the ground.